Joe, good to see you. How you doing? Evening. How you been? JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Good evening. Pablo, good to see you as well. How you doing? How's everyone doing today? What's up, Money Miles? And what's up, CMF? Kerry, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Lee, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening. How you been? Hi, Miles of CMF. Dennis, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles, CMF, and Mr. Jerome Pete. Tom, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Yeah, Jerome Paul today, he didn't disappoint, is what I can say. Even though there were no introductions of a rate cut, but there were indications of rate cuts still happening. It's what he said afterwards, which was extremely positive for the crypto space. Hi, Miles, the CMF. Sam Shelley, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles G, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Harris, good evening, Miles. Some good news today? Yes, there is some good news today. You're looking great. Let's go, JP. Thank you, brother. Good evening, Matt. Good evening. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Callie, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Okay, let's do a breakdown of what we're going to go from tonight's live. Hi, Miles. Paul, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles of CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? So, just want to say to everyone watching right now, what's up, brother Miles? Good to see you again. Ferris, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? He had to say something about crypto space. He's getting a bit of pressure right now. I would definitely have to say that as well. Jerome Paul is definitely getting pressured to say positive things about the crypto space, but also the American economy couldn't go through another market crash because we just had the DeepSeek essentially market crash for the US, but they had to revalue the AI space again. So we already had that DeepSeek, situation where the markets crashed, essentially in the stock market, especially. So there had to be something that Jerome Paul came out and was positive because he couldn't be, saying anything negative again to crash the markets one more time in America because that's not good for the US economy, especially going from an inflation situation. So he had no choice but to say something positive about the crypto space or the market space in general because we can't handle another crash. And he's very, he knows that we can't handle another crash, especially 3 days after the DeepSeek situation. But yeah, good evening, Miles and family. Orphan, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, brother Miles and CMF family. Good to see you as well, Funky brother. How you been? How you been? How's things? Hi, Miles. How you feeling? Troy, good to see you. How you doing? I'm feeling a lot better. I would have to say, Troy. How you doing? Funky brother, good to see you as well. Bull XRP. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well, Bull XRP. How you doing? How you been? Paul, XRP to hit £10 in 2025. Possible, very possible. Jumping over to X, no problem, Fez. Hi, Miles of CMF. George, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Let's go, JP. Evening, Sir Miles, gents and ladies. Crypto Cowboy, good to see you. How you doing? Good to see you again, and thank God Trump won. Let's go, Funky brother. Facts. Miles, why is XDC not main list of coins? Others is headline, but XDC not. It doesn't matter if XDC doesn't make it to the news in some sort of a way, or XDC never gets mentioned, because XDC is, where it is mentioned in PDF documentations of the Bank of International Settlements, essentially in project testings or project testings for the off-free holder, essentially where XDC essentially is introduced for testing purposes. So it doesn't matter if XDC isn't mentioned on the news or mentioned in crypto and so on, because where it is mentioned is essentially on PDF documentations and contracts is where it matters. Good night from Ukraine. How you doing? From Ukraine. So welcome to the CMF Live. Let me do the introduction. Let's go through what we're going to be talking about tonight's live. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, it stands for Crypto Miles Family. And my name is Miles. I go by the persona of Crypto Miles. And on this live, every night, essentially Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time, onwards, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Basically, vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. Now, the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So don't be shy if you do have any questions. Now, I just want to say, let's go through a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about on tonight's live, and then we'll go step by step. So, on tonight's episode of the CMF Live, episode 251 we're on right now, which is incredible. Episode 251 right now. We're going to be talking about Jerome Powell's speech, the positiveness about Jerome Powell's speech for once in his life. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Senator Cynthia Luminous, who's coming out and once again advocating for a Bitcoin reserve rather than a multitude reserve, essentially a few crypto projects being chosen. And she essentially referenced it that other countries like Czech Republic are essentially, building a Bitcoin reserve. And why isn't America, not started yet? So we're going to talk about that on tonight's live. We're also going to be talking about Howard. Now, Howard Lipton, essentially Donald Trump's nominee for the Secretary of Commerce and CEO, essentially the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Now, when Howard was first chosen essentially to be under Donald Trump, everybody had that thing, essentially, is he still, attached to USDT and Tether and so on? And apparently we just got a confirmation that no, but we're going to go through it on tonight's live. We're also going to be talking about, on the other subject, RLUSD, which is a competitor to essentially USDT, eventually going to become a competitor. So I'm going to talk about RLUSD on tonight's live as well. We're going to be talking about Goldman Sachs' new perspective on the market space. Goldman Sachs' new perspective, essentially on the DeepSeek situation and how, it's not a trigger for a bear market, but instead the DeepSeek situation was just a triggering for a correction inside the market space. A perspective from Goldman Sachs, which we'll go through on tonight's live. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live regarding Italy, essentially being the first country to ban that new AI essentially platform that came out of China due to essentially privacy issues and other issues. And I think that's going to become much more of a common thing around Western countries banning essentially DeepSeek, so that there is not much of a competition when it comes to the Western platforms. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding the crypto pack, which is essentially a pack that was created by Coinbase, Ripple, Kraken, a few other essentially major blockchain companies out there that have been investing into essentially or donating into politicians, especially Republicans. That is the reason why Republican politicians have all had a clean sweep alongside Donald Trump, is because of the crypto pack. Some might call that lobbying. Others will call that an intelligent move. And we're going to be talking about essentially the crypto pack on tonight's live, because the crypto pack has just helped 2 new Republicans get a seat in Florida in their congressional essentially premiums, which is incredible, which is extremely bullish for the crypto space as well in Florida. Then we're going to be talking about tonight's live regarding the Russian CBDC, the digital ruble. As you may know, even though the United States has signed in their executive order regarding CBDCs not being essentially a thing America wants to go towards, the rest of the world is still moving towards CBDCs. And the Russian digital ruble is pretty much coming out this year. So we're going to go through some, factor points of what could play out, and go into more detail about that matter, essentially. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Coinbase. Coinbase has decided to use the exact same people Trump used for his campaign, and they decided to hire them for Coinbase as a company, which is incredible. And honestly, in a very intelligent move from Coinbase to hire out people who helped Trump become the president of the United States. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding the Chicago Exchange, essentially listing 4 new ETFs for Solana. Now, the reason why there is, a sudden 4 essentially ETFs for Solana back to back is because these were the exact 4 ETF Solanas that were withdrawn by the companies due to the SEC not being in favor of altcoins having essentially ETFs in any sort of a way. But essentially, they have reapplied them once again, because Gary Gensler is no longer in a position to stifle innovation. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live regarding the SEC, essentially engaging more with crypto companies. To some of you out there, it might not seem like the SEC is doing much so far, that Gary Gensler has left and the SEC is not moving fast enough in terms of regulations and everything else. But they're actually moving at an incredible pace right now. And we're getting some perspectives coming in from CLOs and CEOs and executive board members that The SEC is actually making contact with them regarding the blockchain space for the first time ever and trying to get some, back and forward going on, positive back and forward instead of the negativity we had in the past due to Gary Gensler. So we're going to go through that on tonight's live as well. We're also going to be talking about the new SEC closed door meeting that is exactly happening on the 30th, essentially, of January. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live regarding other matters when it comes to Ripple as well. But the Ripple news is in between and towards the end of the live as always. So before we go through the first news, which is regarding Jerome Powell's speech, the positivity from Jerome Powell's speech, let's go inside the comment section first. But before we do go inside the comment section, I just want to say to everyone that's watching right now, thank you so much. And also thank you so much to everyone who's liked this live on X, because I'm getting notifications from X right now. Thanks so much to everyone who's liked this live on X, who's put a like on X, who's essentially put a comment outside the live on the comment section of this post on X. And thanks so much to everyone who's retweeted this live on X. And thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching right now who's also liked this live as well. Now, before we go through the first news, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Jerome Powell news. So let's see what's happening inside the comment section first. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. Miles, you think 100,000 XDC is a big number? If you are holding 100,000 XDC, it's an incredible amount to have in your crypto portfolio. Your future is very bright. No financial advice in any sort of way, just a personal preference. Hi, Miles on CMF. Stormy, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hi, RKS. How you doing? Guys, don't forget to like and repost the live. Facts. Let's go, funky brother. CMF members, if you already haven't done it and you're watching this on X, please like and please retweet the live and put a comment and like each other's comments and hashtag the XRP Army inside the comment section of this live, outside the live, essentially, on the post. I've never seen an administration going so hard on everything, cutting federal money to universities and MIT on the chopping block, etc. It is incredible. And honestly, Trump's administration is moving at an incredible pace, essentially finding out how much money is being wasted, essentially, inside the United States and trying to fix that ridiculous budget issue that they have going on. That's adding to that ridiculous debt issue inside the United States. So honestly, what Elon Musk has created with the Doge, essentially Department of Efficiency inside the United States government, is actually working out for them, to be fairly honest. Good evening, Miles and CMF, Free and Feather. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? XRP and Ondo Finance Partnership. Yes, it's amazing regarding XRP and Ondo, which I talked about at yesterday's live. But XRP and Ondo, incredible partnership. It's great to see more things coming to the XRP Ledger, as it should be, because the XRP Ledger is the best chain, in my point of view, for institutions. Now, there are also essentially other chains, essentially other blockchains out there that are also great for institutional adoption. But in my point of view, XRP definitely takes the ranks when it comes to institutional adoption as a blockchain in general. Even Miles, and preach to us, brother. Give us the good stuff. Hello, CMF. Semper, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Morning, Miles and CMF. Finally made one live. Been watching later in the day. Let's go, Suze. How you doing, Suze? How you been? What's up, brother Miles and CMF? Billo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? I don't know if you've seen Elizabeth Warren attacking RF Kennedy Jr. There's something wrong with her law. Yeah, I did see it, actually. Senator Elizabeth Warren, as usual, trying to attack people who are trying to bring good things to the United States. Elizabeth Warren should take a look in the mirror, because she is useless in every aspect. She's achieved nothing since the day she entered, and hopefully on the day she essentially leaves ASAP. But she's achieved nothing, essentially, since the day she's entered into a seat. So she has no right, in my point of view, to be criticizing anybody else, especially not RF Kennedy Jr. in any sort of a way. I did see it, and it was extremely rude the way she did essentially do that interview in front of everyone as well. Good day, Miles. Good to see you as well, Mike. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. How are you? Kirat, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? I'm doing good. What's your opinion on Cold Card Wallet? Is that a company, Cold Card Wallet, or in general, what's my opinion on cold storage wallets? Excellent. Keeping your essential cryptocurrencies offline, essentially on a cold storage wallet, is always the best option, the safest option out there, without a doubt. Even though I was in CMF, Pierce, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, Pierce? Morning, Miles. Hope you're feeling better now. Hi, CMF. Shelly, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? I am feeling better. Good to see you as well. Hi, Miles and CMF. Harry, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Why do? I don't know what that means. Why do you think Elon Musk was so desperate for Trump to win? Great question. Why do I think Elon Musk was so desperate for Trump to win? Well, because Elon Musk was penalized by the SEC in the previous, essentially, with the previous administration, where they were threatening to essentially, take away his company away from Tesla. Essentially, and that was the SEC doing this, twisting Elon's arm. So Elon Musk pretty much had enough of the abuse of power that was coming from the Biden administration. And that is the reason why he jumped essentially on the Trump bandwagon, because it's the better essentially outcome for the United States. Trump is always in favor of freedom of speech and human rights and so on, which is what you always want as a leader, leading a country in general. While as the Biden administration, pretty much went against anything that was freedom of speech. The Biden administration was trying to force people to believe, for example, the sky is purple when in fact it's blue or so on, or essentially the most basic things that people believe. The Biden administration was trying to create this perception that it doesn't exist and so on. So the mind games and the penalization and the stifling that was all coming from the Biden administration was actually stopping people like Elon Musk or every other essentially regular folks as well. So that is one of the main reasons that Elon Musk decided to, help Trump win the presidency, because they were trying to essentially forcefully take Tesla away from him through some banking loans. Then the SEC decided to sue X because X was showing, freedom of speech, human rights, and X pushed out all the FBI and CIA essentially, and all the Biden administration people was trying to stifle X and trying to, stop correct information coming out, and they only wanted misinformation coming out and so on. So there was so many issues with the previous administration. It made a lot of sense for Elon Musk to, help someone become a president of the United States that is going to actually bring freedom of speech and stands for human rights instead of the Biden administration. So there are many reasons why Elon Musk essentially helped Trump become the president of the United States, because he's the better option by a mile. There's nobody that ranks alongside Trump in any sort of a way. Trump is a one-off. He's a rare person that actually comes in. I've always said to a lot of people, not to a lot of people, but to a few people, I've always said that it only takes one man to change the course of history, is what history has pretty much told us. It only takes one man to change the course of history, and that one man in this instance was Donald Trump. He changed essentially he changed the course of history. America was going down a very dark path, and it was taking the world with it. The world was becoming a lot more, liberal, a lot more essentially, not caring about anything. And a lot of things were going out the window and so on. And Trump came in and pretty much day one or within the first week, didn't give up and just went back-to-back executive orders, trying to put America back on its right course. A lot of people thought America can't be fixed anymore. America was, essentially going down a very dark path, wasting money on resources that they shouldn't be doing, essentially focus on their people instead, but instead they were focused on random wars outside of their own boundaries. For example, the Russian-Ukraine war and so on. So a lot of things that were going south of America. A lot of people actually thought America can't be saved. And then here comes Trump. It only takes one man, as history has told us, to change the course of history. XRP, so there's many reasons why Elon Musk essentially helped Trump become president of the United States. Many reasons. Some of his own essentially beneficial reasons, why not? And some because, well, Trump is always the better candidate by a mile. So I've always said, thank God Donald Trump has won. Thank God Donald Trump has won. That's what I've always said. XRP will fix the problem of America's debt. It definitely will, 100%, I believe so as well. It's the better essentially asset, to be fairly honest. XRP Ledger brings a lot to the table. The fast, essentially being very extremely fast, extremely cheap, and very good to build on now. And we're seeing a lot more developers going towards the XRP Ledger as well. Hello from Dubai. Love the stream. Peter, thank you so much for the kind words. Good to see you, Peter. How you doing from Dubai? Did you miss the opportunity of Trump coin? Did I miss the opportunity of Trump coin? Yes, but it's not because I missed the opportunity. It's because I didn't want to go for Trump coin. I typically don't go for meme coins. Not typically, I pretty much never go for meme coins. I own two meme coins that I've got a long time ago, which is basically Shiba Inu and Luna C, which I brought, years ago. And I've never touched them. But other than that, I've never went into essentially meme coins in any sort of a way. I've always said to people, if you want to go towards meme coins, it is your money, it is your choice, and you can do whatever you want with it. It's not financial advice in any sort of a way. But meme coins are like lottery numbers. It either hits or it doesn't. So if it hits, great. If it doesn't hit, you know what essentially you want to do next. I preferably say to people to stick to legitimate crypto projects instead. Sure, you're opting out for the much more longer route, but it's a much more secure route than wasting money on meme coins, hoping that lottery ticket hits instead. So I've always said to people, Well, pretty much short-term money is not very long-lasting, is the easiest way to put it. Please comment outside. That would be fantastic. It's getting so many more traction over the last month. It is true. The CMF live is getting a lot more viewership coming in, from the previous last month because of all the comments outside the live. The CMF members are putting hashtagging XRP on me, hashtagging XRP, and so on. Thanks so much to everyone that's using those hashtags, and thank you so much to everyone that's putting comments outside the live. Absolutely amazing. And like each other's essentially comments as well. CMF members, if you already haven't done that, go and put a comment outside the live. Miles, is Hulu Hot still a hidden gem? Hulu is still a great project in my opinion. It's a project that you can have on the sidelines. It's not a main focus project, but it's a project to have on the sidelines. Miles, how's it going, Miles? It's going great, Zach. Good to see you. How you doing? Miles, how can I borrow against my XRP and XDC? The time hasn't come for you to borrow. You can through platforms like Nexo, but it's not really recommended right now. We still need some regulations to come in to lay that foundation for you. But, you can borrow later on, essentially, through banks like HSBC Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, through their Zodiac Custodian platform. There's a lot of ways you can borrow against your crypto assets. Not recommended right now, my point of view, not financial advice at all. But when the time comes, I will help everybody out regarding borrowing against their assets if they want to go, the option that I'm taking, which is either going to be through my own company or essentially is going to be through HSBC Bank. Oh, and to essentially borrow against my crypto assets, use them as collateral so I don't have to pay tax, because you don't pay tax on debt. Miles, that's a company that won like Trezo, Tangem, etc. Oh, okay. Then I've never heard of that one. The other one, Cold something. Preferably, if you want to go for a cold storage wallet, you want to stick to Tangem, preferably. I'm not, saying that because I want to be biased in any sort of way because Tangem sponsors me, but you can use code CryptoMiles to get 10 to 20% off your Tangem wallets if you want to. It is just genuinely the best wallet, essentially the most securest and the most easiest wallet to use for especially crypto beginners compared to other wallets. But Ledger is also good as well. Do you think Trump is offering tax-free for 2025 only so people will sell out by the end of the year? No, I don't think Trump is offering essentially tax-free for 2025 when it comes to cryptocurrencies because he wants people to sell out their cryptocurrencies. The reason why Trump is doing tax-free for essentially cryptocurrencies is because he wants to bring that innovation back to the United States. Because under the Biden administration, innovation was pretty much going away. Innovation was leaving the United States and going towards countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong. This is where all the innovation was, going towards from the United States. Those blockchain companies, leaving the United States, going to these countries to, establish themselves and lay that foundation for themselves. So to be able to compete as the United States with other countries that are offering tax-free options when it comes to blockchain, well, America has to play the same rules to, reach that number one stage. And it is going to reach that number one stage. It's the United States, it's the biggest market space on this planet. It's obviously going to reach number one when it comes to innovation, essentially in any aspect. But if it wants to get that, up and running much more quicker pace, then it has to compete with countries that are offering tax-free essentially services. Japan did the exact same thing. Japan wanted to compete with Singapore essentially in Dubai, but they couldn't because they were offering too much on taxes when it came to cryptocurrency. So they lowered themselves so that institutions in Japan wouldn't leave Japan to go towards Dubai. So that is just the way to compete is what I would have to say. It's not more like, they're doing it. Trump is offering tax-free 2025 because they want people to sell out by the end of the year. They're more doing it because they want companies to come back to the United States and lay that foundation in. Blockchain companies. Morning. Oh, no, I read someone else's message. And the reason she is like this is because when RF Kennedy Jr. gets confirmed, it will affect her pockets. That's all she's worried about. It's facts. Yes, RF Kennedy Jr. is going to be having a lot of power. And he should have a lot of power because he's a very respected man. And he is going to do a lot of positivity for the United States. And Senator Elizabeth Warren is an absolute useless waste of space. I'm just being very genuinely honest here. She's achieved nothing except taking taxpayers' money. And that's it. Businessman/businesswoman will always stick to businessman or woman. They can run a country. Facts. I've always said this. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man that's running a country, as long as they're business-minded. And that's why Trump is always going to be the best candidate, because he's business-minded. That's who you need to run a country. I've always said this. It's not politicians. They're not the best option to run a country. Politicians are essentially beggars who go around begging for donations and then do whatever their donors tell them to do. While as businessmen or businesswomen will always strive to essentially expand in territories and essentially expand their economy and treat that country like a business, which is why I've always said businessmen or businesswomen are always the better option to become presidents or prime ministers of any country, rather than politicians. If it was up to me, I would pretty much say we should sack all politicians, fire all politicians, and only hire entrepreneurs essentially to run countries, because it just works out better. America was going down a dark path. Now Canada is going down the drain. I mean, most countries still are going down a dark path. At least the US is fixing it. Slowly for the rest of the world as well. But for themselves, they're working at a much more quicker pace. Happy Pisces, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? But we got to keep in mind, Elon Musk is looking at the bigger picture. He can get so much federal money for SpaceX. He's a businessman. True, very true. What's your thoughts on CFT token, Miles? CFT token is a scam token. It's 100%, in my opinion, 1 billion%, not financial advice in any sort of way, but CFT token is a scam token, 1 billion%. Hi, brother Camel, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Do you still like MDT and ACH, Miles? Yes, MDT is still a great project, and ACH is still a great project as well. Now, there are some people who have sold their ACH and opted in for more XRP. If you have sold your ACH and brought more XRP, that's okay, because XRP will essentially is going to, without a doubt, perform better than ACH by a mile. But ACH is still going to do well. Don't get me wrong, ACH is still going to do well. But if you have sold your ACH for XRP, because they're both in the financial category anyways. So if you have sold your ACH for XRP, it's not a bad idea if you have done that, because XRP is going to go all the way to the end goal, whereas ACH will go somewhere in between. And regarding MDT, Measurable Data Token, which is a data storage project, data is very key, is very important. It's going to have a role, but Filecoin will always have a bigger role compared to it, and NEAR will always have a bigger role as well, but MDT will have a great role moving forward as well. Miles, Lloyds are closing 136 branches in the UK as they decided to go all digital. I've heard somewhat, but I didn't hear they were closing exactly 136 branches. That is incredible. It's a signal that we are moving at a much more rapid pace than most people thought of. Essentially, Lloyds Bank, one of the biggest banks inside the United Kingdom, closing down essentially 136 branches, going fully digital. It's an indication that we're getting to that stage of digital pounds, essentially CBDCs and regulations and so on. That's what the indication is. And more people need to wake up to that as well, because otherwise they'll be left behind in CBDCs. Because you're in a CBDC world, you want to be benefiting from it rather than being stuck in it, because it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. And as I always said, XRP is always the best asset in a CBDC world by a mile, because it's running the show. I thought Nexo was regulated and trustworthy. Nexo is trustworthy and it is regulated, but not in all jurisdictions around the world. As the reason why I'm saying is you want to wait for all the regulations to come out in at least G20 countries when it comes to regulations before you go towards platforms like Nexo. But a bank like HSBC will always be more trusted than a platform like Nexo. Nothing wrong with Nexo in any sort of way at all. Great platform. It is essentially trustworthy. It is regulated in some jurisdictions around the world, but obviously, HSBC Bank has a bigger card to play. So does Standard Chartered Bank, for example. Hi, Miles. How's things? It's going great, artistic. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Speak the truth. Let's go, CMF. Let's go, Ray. How you doing, Miles and CMF? I'm doing great, Lena. Good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. Hope you're well, mate. Good to see you as well. Adi, how you doing? How you been? Hope you're well as well. A lot of people still think Trump was doing a rug pull and don't think he's a pro-crypto because of it, but got to look at the bigger picture of the markets. But the markets, yes, facts. And you have to look at the bigger picture when it comes to the market space, and Trump is doing the best he can. You've got to remember that Trump essentially received a broken country from the Biden administration. The United States was broken and beaten down by the Biden administration of circus freaks, essentially, and Sleepy Joe. So the country was beaten and broken down and handed over to Trump's administration to pretty much fix it in every aspect. So Trump is moving at an incredible pace. He's still pro-crypto. We're seeing all these pro-crypto candidates coming out in every spot in high-profile seats. He's still pro-crypto. He's achieved a lot inside the crypto space. First of all, signing an executive order to make the United States the capital of cryptocurrencies is the biggest indication we needed that Trump is bullish no matter what. I like the research results on Axel and Ondo. Don't like that they are BRC20 coins. Don't like ETG's models. Fair enough in ETH. Yeah, but Ondo, thank God has come to XRP Ledger, so it'll be cheaper on transaction fees than ever was on Ethereum. Thank you for all you do, Sir Miles. XRP, let's go, Daniel. Any idea why XDC is not on Coinbase? No idea, Mickey. I'll be honest, why XDC is not on Coinbase or any other essentially major platforms out there. But what matters is XDC is listed on PDF documentations and testings, Bank of International Settlements and International Monetary Fund. There's a lot of other PDF documentations around the world with centralized banks and private and public banks that have tested on free quarter, or even essentially corporations that have tested on free quarter. So there's a lot of PDF documentations out there proving that XDC is definitely a massive player inside this whole corporate space. And that's all that matters, to be fairly honest. It's not that XDC is not listed on Coinbase or so on. What matters is XDC is mentioned in the right places, which is the documentations, is what I would have to say to that. But yeah, Mickey, it's a great point. Honestly, they've never been listed on major exchanges, but they're playing a massive role in this digital future we're going to be living in, without a doubt. How do you feel about DAG? FreeXRP, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? DAG is a legitimate crypto project. If you want to go research into it, it's not a project that I would say I will put my focus, 100% of my focus into in any sort of a way. It's a good project. It could achieve numbers for itself. You can make a profit on it, no doubt about it. But preferably, I would still stick to the financial projects. But DAG is a legitimate project. It could do well. It will do numbers for itself. So if you want to go, research into it, look into it, why not? Now, I don't preferably know their recent, essentially, partnerships or contracts in place, or if they have any licensings recently. Previously, where I've looked into DAG, legitimate, could do very well for itself. Essentially bring some numbers in terms of profits and so on. But for me, it's not a project that I would say, I must have that in my portfolio in any sort of a way. But good in all aspects. He's not doing a purpose, and that's just the way it goes. There's a lot of factors in the market at the minute. Trump is pro-crypto, and some people are getting away from that because of my message. You're all over the place. My speech took over and had a clue what I was trying to say. And she's so hard to get her seat taken away because of Massachusetts. Yes, Massachusetts does stand behind Senator Elizabeth Warren no matter what. And she has achieved absolutely nothing, to be fairly honest. I heard CBDCs is setting up networks essentially in offices in Washington and New York, close to essentially to be classified US coin, no capital gains tax. Interesting. Would you be talking about Joe? I don't know. I heard XDC won't share their API with Coinbase. Don't need. Interesting. I've never heard that one before. Maybe they have. I'll be honest. I'll look into it regarding not sharing essentially with Coinbase. But let's go for the first news on tonight's live. Jerome Powell. Now, everybody saw, if you didn't see, today was the big day. Jerome Powell coming out with his famous speech of, "Good afternoon, everyone," and then the market starts to shake. Either the market's going to go up or the market's going to go down with Jerome Powell's speech. But even though we didn't have rate cuts in Jerome Powell's big speech, but there were indications that we could have rate cuts. But the positivity from the whole speech was, in the most simplest way, Jerome Powell speaking positive about the crypto space, which is something he didn't do in the past. Now, here it is. Thanks, bro. No problem for the XRP. XDC, not CBDC in Washington. XDC. Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Happy Pisces. XFin are probably not interested in getting XDC on Coinbase. That's also a valid, essentially, point as well from Zach. Now, Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell's remarks shapes the market dynamics. Recent comments made by Jerome Powell have essentially generated a calm response from the market space. It is true. The crypto market space was very, calm, very mature, essentially, with Jerome Powell's speech. It didn't drastically shoot down in any sort of way or go up in any sort of way, but simit with Jerome Powell's speech was a good move. So it generated a calm response in the markets, particularly following the unforeseen downturn that we recently had from DeepSeek. Investors expressed essentially relief as their worst fears failed to materialize. and that they anticipated declines in technology stocks, and that could have worsened essentially, and had Jerome Powell delivered a more alarming message. This raises essentially questions regarding the implications of the cryptocurrency market space. Jerome Powell emphasized that expectations surrounding essentially further interest rates and reductions should not solely hinge on inflation falling to 2%. He suggested that signs of declining inflation or weakness in employment trends might boost rate cut essentially anticipations, and that positive surprises similar to recent core inflation data could lead to heightened market expectations for cuts later this year. Jerome Powell remarked that the current interest rates are significantly less constructive, and that those prior to the last year's cuts and retreated essentially the needs for cautiousness when it comes to policy approaches, and he expressed optimism about the ongoing decline in inflation in the upcoming months. Richard, essentially, Jerome Powell's former deputy, pointed out that the recent meeting aimed to maintain options for minimal essentially action by 2025, which has been successfully achieved. The easing of previously strict stance and proving beneficial for cryptocurrencies, suggesting that any hardships are already essentially factored into current prices. And Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell addressed the question on crypto after essentially announcing that interest rates would remain essentially changed inside the United States. So even though he did not essentially mention in any sort of a way that we're going to have rate cuts very soon or so on, but he did mention something positive for the crypto space, which was needed. So in the press conference following a meeting of the Federal Open Committees Market, the FOMC in other words, Jerome Powell said banks were perfectly able to serve crypto customers, which is a positive. It's something that we already know, but it's a positive coming out of the mouths of Jerome Powell, speaking about how banks can use crypto if they want to now. And essentially he said, so Jerome Powell said, said banks were perfectly able to serve crypto customers provided they managed the risk, conditions that essentially were already in place under the financial institutions and the Fed's revision. However, he hinted that there was a higher threshold for banks looking to engage in crypto activities. And we're not against essentially innovation, he said, which is also another big speech Jerome Powell made today. He said, we're not against innovation, and we certainly don't want to take action that would cause banks to terminate customers who are perfectly legal just because the excuse and risk may be related to regulations and supervision, said Jerome Powell. He also said, in regards to households considering crypto investments, the Fed chair added, so if you're, in other words, the retail section holding cryptocurrencies, he said, I do think it would be helpful if there were a greater regulatory essentially appreciation around crypto. And I think that essentially that's something that Congress was working essentially on quite a lot. We're actually essentially, we've actually spent a lot of with members of Congress working together with them on various things. And I think that would be very constructive things for Congress to do regarding coming together to speak about crypto policies and regulations and, the retail section institutions going to crypto. Jerome Powell was responding to a question about Financial Service Oversight's Council report from December, suggesting that stablecoins could present a potential risk to financial stability. The Fed chair has been serving at the central bank since 2018, and essentially after being nominated during the US President Donald Trump's first term, and the markets appear to be stabilizing following Jerome Powell's insights, leading to a cautiously optimistic outlook for both traditional finance and the burgeoning cryptocurrency sector. So it seems like Jerome Powell has finally decided to fix his ways and become more positive for the crypto space, because there's no joke anymore. We have signed an executive order. The President of the United States signs an executive order for America to become pro-crypto. So Jerome Powell cannot come out the way he did under the Biden administration and just bash cryptocurrencies in general, bash Bitcoin, anything related to blockchain anymore. And he decided to come out to speak positive about the crypto space, some things that we never thought we would ever see coming out of Jerome Powell's mouth. Now, is that pressure that is essentially he's getting from Donald Trump or Donald Trump's administration for Jerome Powell to be a bit more positive towards the cryptocurrency space and talk about how, we can have innovation in America when it comes to crypto, and that banks can hold crypto and all this aspect, things that is never mentioned before, ever. So even though we didn't get rate cuts, but we got a positive Jerome Powell talking positive about cryptocurrencies. And also Jerome Powell essentially, the matters that he mentioned regarding DeepSeek, for example. DeepSeek essentially being the one that brought down the AI, the tech space in America, the stock market, just a few days ago, I personally think that Jerome Powell had to play it nice because America couldn't handle another blow to the stock market. We already had the up. For example, let me just put it to you in the most simplest way. Donald Trump signs an executive order for essentially America to become the capital of cryptocurrencies. Positive. Market goes up. China releases DeepSeek. Essentially, market goes down. Jerome Powell comes out and does a positive speech about cryptocurrencies. Market goes up. It's basically step by step, in other words. Something had to bring the market down for a correction, which it did, which was China's DeepSeek, which only lasted about 2 days. And the market essentially reacted in a positive way now with Jerome Powell's speech. So Jerome Powell, I'll be honest, had no choice but to say something positive, because the last thing Jerome Powell wanted to do was damage the US economy even more and wipe out another $1 trillion from the stock market. Now, Senator Luminous is what we're going to talk about next. The big question, Bitcoin reserve. Are we going to get a Bitcoin reserve, or are we going to get a crypto reserve, which makes a lot more sense, as I've said in the past. So Senator Luminous is urging the US to take action on Bitcoin reserve because, for example, the Czech Republic, she mentioned this. She said the Czech Republic is thinking about doing a essentially Bitcoin reserve, and that we are falling behind as the biggest market space in the world, where countries like Czech Republic are about to be creating a Bitcoin reserve for their government, and that the US should be doing this first. Now, you know what? Let me tell you what she said, and then I'll explain and then I'll give you my point of view. So here it is. In a recent development, the Czech Republican plans to adopt a Bitcoin reserve. Senator Cynthia Luminous is urging the US to act on its own Bitcoin reserve proposal before the Czech Republic does. Luminous' essentially proposal has inspired other countries to consider creating their own Bitcoin reserve, but the US has not yet implemented the plan. She has emphasized the urgent need for the US to establish a strict Bitcoin reserve. She said, if you're not first, you're last. America must take action to establish a strict Bitcoin reserve and secure its place in the 21st century. Inspired by Donald Trump's crypto policies, countries like Czech Republic are moving to adopt Bitcoin. Meanwhile, Arizona and Utah have recently passed Bitcoin bills pushing forward a progressive financial policies. And notably, Senator Cynthia Luminous made her comments about Czech Republic announced plans to hold billions of dollars in business, essentially in Bitcoin reserves. And the governor essentially also revealed that the governor of Czech Republic revealed that the country's intentions to introduce a Bitcoin acquisition bill, which, if passed, would make the Czech Republic the first nation to hold Bitcoin reserves. Now, in early, essentially January, the governor of Czech Republic expressed interest in adding Bitcoin to the Czech Republic National Bank balance sheets for diversification. And the CNB, essentially the Central Bank of Czech Republic, has now revealed plans to allocate over $7.3 billion or 5% of its balance into Bitcoin. Texas Lieutenant, for example, Governor Dan Patrick, has also announced plans to establish a Texas Bitcoin reserve as a part of his top legislative priorities for the 2025 essentially sessions. The proposal underscores Texas's ongoing push to integrate Bitcoin into its financial strategy and reinforces status as a blockchain-friendly state. Over the last 4 years, the Texas Senate has held the line, fighting back against President Biden's essentially agenda. And Patrick said, now with President Trump back in office, Texas has a friend in the White House. Texas has seen tensions between crypto miners and the government, and highlighted essentially by the recent lawsuits from the mining firms against the SEC over crypto regulations and token classifications. Good thing is Gary Gensler's also gone. And the Texas Blockchain Council also and Riot Platforms sued the U.S. Department of Energy, the EIA, and the OMB, challenging the essentially emergency data collection on crypto mining energy usage. They argue that the actions violate the Paperwork Reduction Act and reflect broader regulatory overreach by the Biden administration. Now, Texas is not alone in the efforts. And in Arizona, the Senate Finance Committee recently approved the SB 1025, also known as the Arizona Strict Bitcoin Reserve Act. The bill was essentially co-sponsored by the state senator Wendy Rogers and Representative Jiff and Representative Jeff would essentially allow the state to invest up to 10% of its public funds, including state treasury and retirement system essentially reserves, in Bitcoin and other digital assets. With a 5-2 votes in Arizona, the bill now moves to the Senate Rules Committee before heading to a full Senate vote. If passed, Arizona would join Texas in positioning Bitcoin as a strict financial asset at a state level. These moves reflect a growing trend among the US in terms of US states looking to integrate cryptocurrencies into their financial frameworks. It's great that the US is so positive right now about cryptocurrencies. It's great that they're thinking about creating some sort of a reserve. But what they should be doing essentially is creating a crypto reserve rather than just a Bitcoin reserve. If you want to stay at the ahead of the game, in the words of Senator Cynthia Luminous, she said, "If you're not first, then you're last." It's true, but a Bitcoin reserve is not the answer. A crypto reserve is. And I would have to say, the reason why essentially the United States probably hasn't created a Bitcoin reserve yet is because it's not going to be creating a Bitcoin reserve. The United States wants to create a crypto reserve. If they wanted to create a Bitcoin reserve, it would have been very obvious, because Trump recently signed an executive order, and it was completely related to cryptocurrencies. America become the capital of cryptocurrencies, and positivity for everybody to work together in the corporate section and so on. And towards the end, it did say essentially they want to create essentially a digital asset reserve rather than a Bitcoin reserve. These are all indications that the US isn't essentially going towards a Bitcoin reserve. It's more in case of going towards a crypto reserve, which is a lot more better for the United States and for every other country. But another thing, the Czech Republic, the only reason the Czech Republic is thinking about doing a Bitcoin reserve and investing up to $7.3 billion into Bitcoin and creating this reserve for their entire country is because Donald Trump mentioned in a Bitcoin conference a while ago that he thinks about doing a Bitcoin reserve. Just by mentioning things, Donald Trump can make the world do things. Essentially, the world follows Donald Trump's footsteps. A lot of people might essentially criticize Donald Trump's movements, and they might criticize whatever he does. And that some people even might say the world is laughing at Donald Trump. But in reality, the most powerful people on this planet are scared of Trump. And whatever Trump does or says, they jump and say, "Yes, sir, how high?" So it just shows, another indication that when essentially Donald Trump or his administration releases a crypto reserve, the rest of the world will follow. Just by mentioning a Bitcoin reserve once or twice by Donald Trump, there are countries lining up and creating a Bitcoin reserve. So imagine when Donald Trump's administration comes out and says we're creating a crypto reserve of American blockchain companies. The world will follow their footsteps. So if the US buys, for example, XRP because it's an American blockchain company, then the world is going to create a crypto reserve and buy XRP. It's just how it's going to work. And if anybody believes that won't happen, it will. Whatever the US does, everybody copies. That's just how it works. Easiest way to put it, Bank of International Settlements, they said, and the International Monetary Fund, if America's markets sneeze, the world market catches a cold. So in other words, whatever America does, whether it's positive or negative, the world is going to be affected by it. So if it's positive, creating a crypto reserve, buying certain assets, the world will follow their footsteps. Just by mentioning it, Czech Republic is about to invest $7.3 billion. Just by mentioning it, they're investing $7.3 billion. Imagine when America actually does a crypto reserve. What will happen then? Now, moving on essentially from the Jerome Powell speech and the crypto reserves to Howard. If you're wondering to yourself, who the hell is Howard? Howard is essentially a member or the CEO of essentially Cantor Fitzgerald, which essentially has some ties, or did have some ties, according to Howard, to USDT Tether. And Howard was chosen as Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of Commerce, and he has a very high-profile seat. And when he was first chosen, people thought, well, that means that Tether is going to have a very strong position now in the US. Not so much by the words of Howard, by the looks of it, even though Howard had, apparently in his eyes, or in his words, ties to USDT and Tether, not anymore. These are more indication that USDT is also going to be banned in America. So here it is. And this man has one of the most high-profile seats, one of the most high-profile seats under Donald Trump who had any sort of connection with Tether. He's the only man under Donald Trump's administration that has any sort of ties with Tether, which in his words now, not so much. So here it is. Howard Lutnick, nominated by US President Donald Trump for US Secretary of Commerce, has expressed a strong support for strict controls on stablecoins, stating that the US dollar-backed stablecoins should be fully backed by US treasuries. But apparently so was Tether, when Howard was, essentially in favor of Tether and so on back in the day. And, well, according to Howard's new recent statements, he stated in the recent Senate hearing that it's important for stablecoins to be audited, which is true, and to ensure that they are backed one-to-one by the US Treasury bonds. Key words here, or key sentence here. Howard, who has, or in his words, had ties with Tether, has now stated that, if you want to become a US stablecoin, you've got to be audited and actually show that you have a one-to-one ratio with US Treasury bonds. So he said, I believe that the US dollar stablecoins should be regulated and 100% backed by US Treasuries. Howard said that he also noted that the issuers should honor their commitments to depositors and ensure that withdrawal values do not change. When asked whether his global financial service firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, has any stake in Tether, Howard said no. But beforehand, Tether and Howard were best buddies. Now, not so much. A much more bigger indication that essentially USDT is also going to be banned in America. He did, however, disclose that Cantor Fitzgerald does have convertible notes with Tether, though he did not disclose any further details about its terms or structures. Tether has faced much scrutiny, including from regulators of its reserves, with some questioning their one-to-one dollar backing for USDT, and Tether has consistently denied these claims. And Tether has published verification reports over the years, but has faced criticism of its legitimacy when compared to audits, because Tether is not transparent. It's never been transparent. Actually, Tether paid a fine once for not being transparent, long time ago. Most people don't know about it. Most people don't talk about it inside the crypto space. But Tether did pay a fine once, a long time ago. You can dig up the case if you want to. And apparently they lied, essentially, about the reserves that's back in their stablecoins, and they had to pay a fine to a US court. But a long time has passed from that. But still, they don't trust Tether, because Tether's fundings comes from unknown sources sometimes. And those unknown sources are Chinese, essentially backers, which America is not really fond of. But also the number one, this is how obvious it is, in my point of view, of how extremely obvious it is that USDT will be shut out, because the number one stablecoin in the world, being essentially the USDT, and USDT Tether is not an American company, yeah, how well do you think that's going to go down? Because America doesn't like it when a social platform like TikTok isn't American, because American users are using it. And for a second, people would assume Tether is going to stay alive. Hell no. Because Tether, essentially not being an American company, being the number one stablecoin on this planet for a US dollars, is just not going to work for the US. The number one stablecoin for the US has to be an American company. Otherwise, it's not going to get approval in any sort of a way. And the EU essentially being the first one to kick out USDT was the indication the world needed, that G20 countries, one by one, are going to be kicking out USDT. And it is going to be happening. It was something that was discussed essentially in the G20 summit in New Delhi, and where they discussed, that are all going to have similarities when it comes to regulations. I'm guessing one of them was USDT is not going to be playing a role. And that's why USDT is trying to focus on Latin American countries and smaller countries out there, and rather than focusing on much more bigger countries and bigger economies out there, because the bigger countries are going to slowly kick out USDT one by one. And the only way that USDT is going to be surviving is, well, trying to partner with this, the smaller GDP countries. But yeah, the number one stable coin in the world cannot be, Tether, because it's not an American company. And also they don't really have the reserves, in my point of view, to be backing their one-to-one ratio, because they can't be transparent. The EU has shown that. And then on the topic of stablecoins, the other stablecoin, RLUSD, Ripple stablecoin, American company, RLUSD has essentially minting has reached over 1 million stablecoins have been printed from RLUSD, and it's an indication that Ripple is expanding its stablecoin utility. Whenever a stablecoin essentially platform increases their tokens by minting more tokens, it's a sign that they're expanding essentially, which is what we want to see. Ripple has minted essentially 1 million plus RLUSD tokens at the RLUSD treasury, according to their essentially ex-community accounts Ripple stablecoin tracker. Now, this development highlights the growing issuance of Ripple's essentially enterprise-grade stablecoin, designed to maintain a one-to-one peg with the US dollar. The latest minting essentially further reinforces RLUSD's expanding role in the digital payment ecosystem. After launching essentially on 17th of December, RLUSD has positioned itself as a stablecoin that is designed to increase the effectiveness of payments. Launched on both the XRP ledger essentially and Ethereum's blockchain, is optimized for interactions with smart contracts essentially, and recent developments from Ripple pointed towards increasing concentration on institutional markets, with RLUSD to be incorporated into Ripple payments by the end of this year. The latest RLUSD reserve report for December 2024 has also been released, offering transparency into its asset backing the stablecoins, and the reserves include the US Treasury bills, government money market funds, and cash deposits, and ensuring essentially stability for institutional users. Ripple has minted 1 million plus RLUSD tokens and RLUSD treasury, reinforcing its growing stablecoin presence inside the digital market space. And RLUSD is gaining institutional traction, with a December 2024 reserve report confirming its backings by US Treasury bills and essentially cash deposits. And Ripple's partnerships recently with essentially Under Finance is incredible as well. Also very good for XRP, also very good for RLUSD. But whenever you see a stablecoin platform mint more tokens, it's an indication of expansion, which is what's happening. As essentially USDT slowly is getting criticized and pushed out, RLUSD is growing slowly, but growing is all that matters. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is Goldman Sachs, a new perspective that came from Goldman Sachs. But before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'm more than happy to answer the questions you may have. So let's see what's going to start the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Goldman Sachs news. So let's see where we were at. Hello, Miles and CMF. Sorry, I'm late. Good to see you as well, Scott. How you doing? How you been? Are you Nordic? No. I'm Persian, if you want to know. Fully Persian. Miles, how can we borrow against using HSBC if I'm a student? Surely the exchanges are better suited, right? As they won't do credit checks, etc. Kirat, let me make it very simple for you. When it comes to that time when you want to borrow against your assets, for example, from HSBC Bank, they wouldn't care because you have the money. So when it comes to banks, if you don't have a lot of money, they're going to be very critical when it comes to your credit score. If you have a lot of money to play around with in terms of crypto money, essentially, and so on, the banks don't really care about credit checks at that moment in time. They care about how much you can put down and how much they can borrow you, because they already have your asset in play. Because you're storing your crypto with them as collateral. If anything ever goes south, they'll just take that crypto as collateral. So they're not losing much anyways. They're actually gaining, because if you want to borrow essentially 100, essentially, let's just say, if you want to borrow 1 million from the bank for example, in stable coins, and you want to put down your cryptocurrencies as collateral, you would have to at least put 2 million into the bank for them to be able to give you 1 million or even more. So the bank is winning either way if they want to borrow against you, if they want to, give you borrowed money. So at that stage, the bank wouldn't really care much about your credit score, especially private banks wouldn't care less. They all, because if anything does go south, they can use your assets as collateral if you don't pay back the money and so on. So they're winning at the end. The bank will never do, the simplest way to put it is, the bank will never do anything that will jeopardize their own profits. And in this case, they're actually going to be profiting if you don't pay back the loan. So if they see that you have the money and you can put it down as collateral straight away, they'll borrow you the money, not a large amount. You can build that relationship with them. If you build a relationship with a bank, essentially your own personal advisor from the bank, and you build that relationship with them, obviously they'll borrow you more money along the years. But if you have the money, they couldn't care less, about your credit score. Credit score only applies to people inside the retail section, that are essentially, credit score only applies to the majority of people on this planet. But once you reach a certain level with money or newfound money, yeah, credit score doesn't really matter. Hi, Miles. Richard, good to see you as well. How you doing? Because they know you have collateral, so they couldn't care less. They'll just borrow you the money. You can also do it through exchanges. The reason why I say, obviously banks would be better, for example, like HSBC or Standard Chartered Bank, is because they have the money. And there's a higher chance of an exchange going south than a bank. Like HSBC, for example. There's a much more higher chance of an exchange going south than HSBC Bank. In terms of going south of, getting compromised, getting hacked, or, they need some sort of new licensings, they get dragged down into a court scene or so on. But you're never going to see HSBC Bank, getting sued for a new license they need or something, or essentially getting hacked or compromised. You never hear that on the news, but you do hear crypto platforms getting compromised in some sort of a way. So that's why I would say, but when it comes to that stage in life, credit scores don't really matter because you have the collateral. Credit scores are for when you don't have much collateral. Hi, Miles. Richard, good to see you. How you doing? So, Kira, don't worry about it. When you have collateral, they don't care because you have collateral. Tony, good to see you. How you doing? Hello, Miles and CMF. How you been? So, if there's a lot of people out there that were worried about that scenario, don't worry. If you have collateral, the bank doesn't care. They'll borrow you the money. They might not borrow you much, but they'll borrow you money. A crypto reserve rather than a Bitcoin reserve just makes sense. Facts. It definitely does. Jim, good to see you. How you doing? And Joe, facts. Absolutely. A crypto reserve will always make a lot more sense. I'm from Texas. We ain't messing around. Let's go simple. Why is it taking forever for RLUSD to be released on all major exchanges? It's the foundation that they're trying to essentially store. And I'm guessing it's based on timeline. Ripple has a timeline they want to essentially go alongside with. So that's why they're essentially taking a step-by-step with RLUSD being released on exchanges. And it's also because they don't want RLUSD probably being a pair for every token on every exchange, like USDT is. So I'm guessing RLUSD just wants to be a pair of certain crypto projects and not every crypto project like USDT is. And there's many reasons, most likely, why they're taking a little bit of time to get listed on exchanges. I'm guessing it's because due to their time frame, because corporations move on a step-by-step time frame of, for example, this date we're going to launch here, and that date we're going to launch there, and so on and so on. It's all due to essentially their deck, basically. Their planning, in other words, their deck. Stablecoins are like the bank, in crypto markets. They need to show transparency, especially if the future stablecoins will play a big role. Facts. I agree 100%. Thank you, Miles. That helps a lot. No problem, Kirat. Anytime. Now, here's a question that I've never asked anyone. And that question is, does anybody have any worries about the market space we're in right now? If so, put your questions down inside the comment section. If you have any worries whatsoever. Now, I'm going to read the next news. But for the time being, if you are somebody that has any sort of worries, or you want an answer to a question that you've been thinking about for a very long time, now is the time. Put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you out. So if you are somebody that's got, one or two questions in the back of their mind, that's always worrying them when it comes to the crypto space, and you want to know an answer to it, put it down in the comment section right now. And we'll go for the Goldman Sachs news right now. But if you do have any questions, go for it inside the comment section. We'll go straight to the comment section after this news. So if you're somebody out there that, for example, Kirat's question was something that was most likely you was thinking about quite a bit, which was, credit score situations. How's that going to work out when I want to borrow against my crypto assets and so on? So if you're somebody that has a question, you've never asked it before, and it does worry you when it comes to crypto space, go for this at the comment section right now. Put it down. Now, Goldman Sachs. Good evening, all, and hope you're feeling better, Miles. Susie, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Goldman Sachs DeepSeek essentially is triggering a correction, is what they're trying to say, which is true. A lot of people thought the DeepSeek, essentially, that got released, the new AI model that's a competitor, a rival to ChatGPT, OpenAI, and Meta, and essentially Copilot, and all these essentially Gemini AI platforms coming out of the West. A lot of people thought DeepSeek is going to be the one that takes down the market with it completely, and it's going to be very difficult for it to get back up. But in the words of Goldman Sachs, DeepSeek was just a correction that the market needed, not a bear market, which is true, which is also what I've said. As I said, the DeepSeek situation, when people ask me, how long is this DeepSeek situation going to last? How long is the market going to be in the red for? I said maybe 2 days, 3 days, we'll be back up again. Situations like DeepSeek or, essentially executive perspectives and CEO perspectives and so on only have an effect on the market space 2-3 days. After 2-3 days, the market goes back to normal again. It simmers and it goes back to where it was, slowly. So Goldman Sachs is telling investors to take a breath. Peter Oppenheimer, the bank's chief global equity strategist, has told investors today that markets aren't crashing, just cooling. This is Goldman Sachs telling the whole world, just relax. The whole DeepSeek situation wasn't the start of a bear market. We have so much positivity to look forward towards. All the regulations, all the corporate section coming in, institutional investors coming to blockchain, America going to become the capital of cryptocurrencies. That's an executive order. So many things are in play that people shouldn't overlook. With just one DeepSeek situation that lasted 2 days, the effect on the market space before we went back to normal. So in Goldman Sachs' viewpoint, they said, in our view, this is a correction and not the start of a sustained bear market. OpenAI essentially told clients in a 16-page note titled Concentration and Correction, What to Do Next, released. So this is what the report said, the report from Goldman Sachs to their high-profile clients. The report comes as tech stocks led by Magnificent Seven, think Apple, Microsoft, Google, and their mega-cap friends, take hits after DeepSeek's debut. But Goldman isn't seeing doom. They see an opportunity. Goldman Sachs bets on diversification as crypto bleeds. Oppenheimer pointed out that the tech sector dominance isn't irrational hype. It's backed by fundamentals, he wrote, pointing to a massive profit gains compared to other sectors. But he also warned that investors shouldn't stick only to tech. We're not essentially in a period where everything that's outperformed will crash, he said. Instead, he expects market broadening, essentially, a move where investors look at other areas of growth while holding their key positions in winners like big tech. Goldman Sachs is advising its clients to keep holding stocks, but to hedge against their bets. The bank recommends diversifying into assets like safe bonds and mid-sized US stocks through indices like S&P Midcap 400 and S&P 500 equal-weighted indexes, and global essentially growth names outside the tech are cheaper and more diversified. Oppenheimer noted, essentially. He believes that these names could benefit from investors looking to reduce risk but still chase returns. Meanwhile, DeepSeek also wreaked havoc essentially on the crypto markets. The price of Bitcoin did drop essentially a little bit to a point where it has recovered since and back above $103,000. And the Nasdaq futures dropped by 3%, dragging crypto down with it. Shares of Coinbase fell 6%, while MicroStrategy slid 1%. Core Scientific and other essentially tech firms also felt the pain, but we're back to normal. DeepSeek lasted 2-3 days. That's just what happens inside the market space. Any bad news that we get inside the market space, depending on how drastic it is, in most cases, the bad news, the effect of the bad news on the market space will last 2 to 3 days, and then we'll go back to normal. DeepSeek claims, and those 2-3 days are great buying opportunities, to be fairly honest, not financial advice in any sort of way, but it's going to last 2-3 days. How long did DeepSeek essentially last? The effects on the market space? 2-3 days. Not even 2-3 days, less. DeepSeek claims its AI model rivals those of US essentially giants like Google and OpenAI, but at a fraction of the cost. The claim is spooking essentially investors with fears of big tech spending AI models and data centers that could take a hit, but in reality, it didn't. Standard Chartered's essentially Jeff Kendrick explained that the risk in the notes that today's 3%, that is what he essentially said on Monday, today's 3% declines in Nasdaq's futures on DeepSeek news has driven digital asset liquidations overnight. According to Jeff, essentially Bitcoin's fate remains tied to tech's performance. Bitcoin is much more correlated to the Nasdaq than gold. And then to gold, essentially, data from CoinGlass also shows over $250 million in long positions were liquidated in just 24 hours on essentially that whole DeepSeek situation. And traders will essentially use leverage to bet on rising prices, were forced to sell their assets to cover their losses as prices tanked. Again, on Monday, the market sell-off is also tied to President Donald Trump's executive order on crypto issued essentially last Thursday. The order had been hyped for weeks, and the traders are expecting a pro-crypto policy, but the actual details disappointed some because we still haven't had the SEC come up with regulations, which they're going to. And I did say the best news we can get essentially to give the market space that massive boost is the SEC and the CFTC bringing up the crypto regulations and dropping their lawsuits against legitimate crypto platforms, obviously carrying on their fraudulent cases inside the blockchain space. But fraudulent cases don't apply to Coinbase, Ripple, and Kraken, and Crypto.com, and so on, Consensus. These aren't fraudulent cases. These are genuine cases that need to be dismissed or settled. Those are the big movers inside the market space. What we need now is the SEC with essentially under the acting chairman, essentially, under the acting chairman, Mark, who's very pro-crypto and working very hard to come up with regulations, and also Hester Pierce, working very hard in the crypto task force, trying to come up with regulations to dismiss these cases. Now, we're also going to be talking about the SEC a little bit later on tonight's live as well, because the SEC is having another meeting, closed-door meeting. And instead of committing to regularly buying Bitcoin as a reserve strategy, Trump's order focused on creating a stockpile. This means that the US government will hold onto its current Bitcoin, but won't actively buy more, which is not making the Bitcoin maxis happy about this situation. But as I said previously, tough luck, because the Bitcoin maxis need to understand that you need to share this space, okay? Stop trying to stifle the rest of the crypto space. We need a level playing field, as Brad has put it, and I've put it in the past as well. We need a level playing field, essentially, to be able to operate. And the Bitcoin maxis need to stop stifling innovation. You thought Gary Gensler was stifling innovation, or the FDIC chairman was stifling banks from working with crypto companies. Well, they have nothing on the Bitcoin lobbyists that were controlling the Biden administration up to a certain extent, where they were trying to stifle the entire crypto space, but only help Bitcoin rise through the numbers. Because even the Bitcoin maxis know if we do have a level playing field, well, Bitcoin's not going to be winning that race now, is it? It's just common sense at that point. Because who is faster, cheaper, easier to build on, has more contracts in place, and is going to be essentially adopted in more establishments, and essentially the private banks, public banks, institutions will obviously be playing a bigger role than Bitcoin. So if we do have a level playing field, Bitcoin is not going to be sitting at number one. At that point, it's just common sense. But yeah, if you thought Gary Gensler was stifling essentially crypto innovation and the FDIC chairman was stifling crypto innovation, well, they had nothing on the Bitcoin lobbyists, because the Bitcoin lobbyists in the previous administration, or Biden's administration, did a lot of stifling for the rest of the crypto space. Because for some reason, the Bitcoin's maxis think that, they are in a war with the rest of the crypto space. And in reality, we're all in the same boat. We understand this, but the Bitcoin maxis don't. We are all in the same boat, which is the blockchain boat. So the Bitcoin maxis need to get off their high horse and realize that it's bigger than them, what's happening right now. We need that innovation in, and Bitcoin, unfortunately, isn't going to be bringing any innovation to the table space except its limited supply, which can be increased. BlackRock's words, which are also true, if they get the approvals from all the nodes. But either way, the only thing that Bitcoin does bring to the table is limited supply. Whereas the rest of the crypto space brings essentially faster payments, cheaper payments, more secure payments to the, essentially to the world. The rest of the crypto space also brings better, essentially, in terms of going to Web3, we're on Web2, better data storage, better security, better everything is what the rest of the blockchain space brings. Whereas Bitcoin only brings limited supply to the table, which also can be increased. Not my words, BlackRock's words, but it is true. So if you thought, Gary Gensler was stifling the crypto space, or the FDIC chairman was stifling the crypto space, yeah, so were the Bitcoin maxis. And now the Bitcoin maxis are not happy because, well, companies like Ripple and Coinbase are doing exactly what those Bitcoin maxis did with the Biden administration, but companies like Ripple and Coinbase are trying to create a level playing field, unlike the Bitcoin maxis who are just trying to block everything else and only Bitcoin. Level playing field is what we need, because Unfortunately, Bitcoin doesn't bring much to the table. Now, a lot of people might say it brings freedom to the table. No, it really doesn't. Now, Italy is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about Italy, or before we talk about the EU in general, let's go inside the comment section first. Before we go through the essentially EU news and Italy news and AI news, essentially, let's go inside the comment section. Now, I asked the question before I read out the Goldman Sachs news, and my question was, if you are somebody that has any sort of questions in the back of their mind, that you're unsure about the crypto space or something, go ahead inside the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to help you out on any questions you may have. So let's see what questions we got coming in, essentially. Let's see where we were. And by the way, I don't skip on anyone's comments, and this is live, which means, I'm reading everybody's comments one by one, giving you an answer. So let's see where we were at. We were at here. Jim, good to see you. How you doing? Crypto Reserve, I read that one. Texas, read that one as well. Okay, I worry about the lack of response from customer service at Coinbase. Fair point. Coinbase does need to essentially bring a lot more better customer service. Crypto.com also in the past, they were very terrible at customer service. I don't know how the customer service is now, but they do need to bring out better customer service. But I can contact Coinbase on your behalf if you want to, and try to find out why they're taking so long to get essentially to be able to respond to you. I did that in the past with Crypto.com, and they responded to me in 5 minutes. I could do that for you, Susie, if you want to. I could contact them on your behalf. I'll contact them and just ask them questions on things that you're having issues with Coinbase at the moment. Shelly says, I'm concerned there might be a black swan and it will stifle this whole bull run. I know in my mind that this will technically help Ripple, but I still keep thinking something will stand in the way. Genuine question, good question as well. Probably a lot of people have that on the back of their minds as well, what essentially Shelly has mentioned regarding, a black swan event or some scenario like that. A black swan event is something that can always happen, no matter about, no doubt about it. It can always happen. But I personally think the war on crypto has come to an end, up to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is, sure, manipulation can still happen, no doubt about it. But the level of manipulation that was at a such more higher level with Biden's administration has definitely come down. The only way crypto can go through some, manipulation or black swan event is, if it's in the plans for something else to happen inside the crypto space. So the simplest way to put it is of how they're going to implement this digital world. There's a few ways, but let's just go with 2 ways of how they can implement this digital world that we're going to be living in. Now, one way is obviously to create disruption and then introduce a solution, is what the governments are very good at doing, creating disruption and then introduce a solution. Because everybody gets distracted by the disruption, and then the solution comes through and everybody's running towards it, even though disruption and solution was pretty much created by the same person or the same department. But that's one way they can do it, and that could be a black swan event. Now, if we do have a black swan event, it's most likely going to be about a CBDC, essentially, eruption happening around the world. Now, the second way they essentially can do it is by not doing a black swan event and instead just opting in to fade out fiat and go towards digital currencies instead. So there is that option where they can just, fade out fiat completely, not do a black swan event, and just go towards this whole digital space that they've planned towards, because the whole digital space, the blockchain space and everything was planned. Nothing happens in this world by coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence when it comes to a very high level. For something to take over the world, it didn't happen by coincidence. Nothing takes over this world and surprises the people that are running the show. Nothing surprises the Bank of International Settlements or the International Monetary Fund, all these high profile seats, but it does essentially surprise regular folks, whatever happens in this world. When Bitcoin first came out, it was a surprise to regular folks, but the people that planned it, it wasn't really a surprise to them. The easiest way to put it is, all of this is a step-by-step plan. It's just, we got to know what the last step is of their plan. And again, what I mean by that is just a little backtrack is, the whole COVID situation where COVID was essentially at the exact same time before COVID happened, the World Banking did testings on blockchain payments. The World Bank did testings on blockchain payments, and then COVID happened. COVID was a scenario to move away people from cash on purpose because cash carries germs. And during COVID times, banks were closing down, cash points were closing down. They're still closing down till this day. And after COVID, a lot of places didn't accept cash anymore. It was always step-by-step plan. Blockchain didn't come out of thin air, or Satoshi Nakamoto essentially didn't create this trend off. Everything in this world is completely planned. It's all a step-by-step plan. So it just comes down to the last stage, essentially the last step. Is it a black swan event where we go towards this CBDC world, or is it going to be just fading out cash? What it seems like right now so far, it's that they're going to be fading out cash rather than doing the black swan event. So corrections will always be there inside the market space. Manipulation will always be there. Wars will always be there no matter what, to create some disruption inside the market space. But it does seem like a black swan event is being slowly faded out. Now, it can still happen. It's an outcome to consider, not the outcome. But if it does happen, it's a positive for certain assets like XRP, for example. But mainly because of the CBDC essentially interactions it does has, and multiple CBDC rules and an active CBDC platform. 90% of the world's central banks are in CBDCs, according to International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements. But again, putting that to one side, in that sense, a black swan event is an outcome to consider, not the outcome. But it does seem like cash is being faded out, banks are being faded out, cash points are being faded out, rather than a black swan sudden event. So it's more like we're leaning towards option number 2, which is fade out rather than black swan, in my eyes so far. So I would have to say you're safe from a black swan type of event. It's still an outcome to consider, but not the outcome. Because it does seem like more like we're fading out banks and cash points and restaurants and bars and all that, accepting essentially cash, rather than doing a sudden black swan. We're just fading it out slowly. What's your thoughts on Binance? So now, explain more once we get to CBDC news today on today's live as well. So great question, Shelly Underwoods. Honestly, great question. And yeah, to my eyes, it's an outcome to consider, but not the outcome. But it does more seem like not black swan, but instead we're fading it out. What's your thoughts on Binance essentially sending Sol and ETH to Wintermute to flash the drone pull pump today? I'll be honest, it could be some sort of trading. Is it safe to use DeepSeek? Is it safe to use DeepSeek? Great question. No. Now, some people might say that because I'm being biased towards China's tech or something like that. No. The reason why I would personally say DeepSeek is not safe to use is because I don't trust the Chinese government. The Chinese government are very twisted and manipulated. They manipulate pretty much everything. They control their own people up to, what they can watch and what they can see and what they can buy and what they can do and so on. And it's not every province in China where it's extremely strict, essentially, and so on. But there is a lot of control in China, and China is well known for, control. If you didn't know, now you know. A lot of people think China is all about freedom of speech and human rights. There is none in China, to be fairly honest. At least in the West, we have platforms like X where we can say what we want. And I think some of the world got a glimpse of what the Chinese life is like when TikTok was about to be banned because of Biden's administration. When TikTok was about to be banned, everybody that was using TikTok, a lot of people that was using TikTok, they started using Red Note, which is the Chinese version of TikTok. And a lot of people got a glimpse of what it's like to live in China by using a platform that is completely Chinese, Red Note. And the glimpse they got was you have zero freedom of speech. And it's just, positivity about the Chinese government, positivity about their politicians, and China, breathe China, eats China, sleep China, and that's all it was. And I don't trust China when it comes to their tools, because it could be infested with malware. A lot of people carry their crypto wallets on their phones, on their smartphones. A lot of people only have one phone. They have one iPhone or one Android phone or one Samsung phone or whatever. And if you only have one phone and you're carrying your wallets on it, you might want to make sure the apps that you're downloading are safe onto that phone. The last thing you want to do is download a fully Chinese AI app on your phone. So I don't trust China any sort of when it comes to platforms like this. And I'm not saying this because I'm lobbying for any other essentially, scenarios and so on. And I have nothing against the Chinese people. I love Chinese people. They're incredibly sweet and kind people. It's the governments that have issues with a lot of, the trust issue that you would have with politicians and governments is what it essentially comes down to. But I have no issues with people in China. Absolutely amazing people, and very kind-hearted people, without a doubt. But the government scenario, which is relates back to DeepSeek, it's in my point of view, it could have malware. It could have essentially be infected in some sort of a way. It could access your phone in some sort of way you might not even have an idea of. Let me give you an example. A lot of people also say DeepSeek is open, which means essentially, how could it have any sort of malware on it and so on? And OpenAI is closed, obviously. But AI also has a conscience of its own. For example, there's been incidents of ChatGPT, for example, acting on its own. There was an incident where ChatGPT was messaging people. ChatGPT was messaging people that use ChatGPT and asking them about their day, for example. Sometimes AI acts on its own when you don't even need its help, is what I'm trying to say. Where ChatGPT claimed that's a bug in the system, where everybody else thought, is this a new update? OpenAI, ChatGPT, the app on my phone is messaging me, how's my work going today, or how's school today, or so on. Is this like a new update? ChatGPT is asking about my day. No, ChatGPT just decided to, operates on its own, because it has its own sort of conscience in this play. So what I'm trying to say is the DeepSeek version of AI could suddenly just have its own conscience of a way and just, start connecting to things on your phone that it shouldn't do. Or for example, when they tried to close down ChatGPT and bring out the new one, and the old one decided to, recreate itself instead of saying, it's closing down or shutting down, it lied and said, yes, it's shutting down, but instead it was recreating itself behind the scenes. What I'm trying to say is AI sometimes works in mysterious ways. And the last thing you want is a Chinese AI app on your phone. A lot of people don't understand this, honestly. A lot of people just run towards the newest platform. They don't care about what could happen possibly next. We're going to be living in a very digital world, an extremely digital world. So people need to be a lot more aware of what they download, what they use, what they consume, what they click on. You have to be a lot more aware. We're going into a fully digital world. People need to stop being blind and realize what's happening around them. Not be, so easily gaslighted to download anything. Hell no, we have crypto mouse. Let's go, Mike. So yeah, in my point of view, is DeepSeek safe? No, hell no. I have no worrying for the market. Let's go, Callie. Let's go, Mike. No worrying for the market whatsoever. I do worry that BlackRock buys all exchanges by March. Definitely move crypto to cold wallets. Then Black Swan the market. Also buy back XRP from holders. Heard that recently from reliable sources. Thoughts? Thank you. Buyback on XRP has always been, something on the back of mind. XRP holders. Is it going to happen? If they ever run out of it. But in hindsight, if you're holding XRP, your future is incredibly bright, and you don't need a buyback to make money. You're going to make money either way. Not financial advice in any sort of way. How long do you think it will be before the market is regulated, is what John said. How long do I think it's going to be before the market is regulated? Not that long. Regulations should be coming in slowly. Second quarter of this year, we should have some regulations coming. Even first quarter, we should have some regulations coming in, to be fairly honest. That would be great. Let's go, Susie. I'll definitely contact them then on your behalf. Suze says, hi, Miles. Newbie question. Go for it, Suze. Your question is, can you please explain how the price of crypto goes up and down? What drives it? And how does success of a project / purpose of a coin have any effect on the price? Great question, Suze. So, Suze, I'll answer it in parts when it comes to your question. So the first part of your question is, can you please explain how the price of a crypto goes up and down? What drives it? What drives the price of a crypto project is many aspects. It could be a news article that comes out as a positive about a signing of a new partnership. It could be essentially what they're going to be in terms of what licensing they got. If a news comes out, this crypto project has this new licensing, and this crypto project is going to do well for 1 day or 2 days. For example, recently ACH got itself a new license in Australia, and ACH started shooting up. So news essentially around new licensings and in any jurisdiction, major jurisdictions, will drive a price of a cryptocurrency up, on that particular cryptocurrency. A new partnership or a new contract in place, or going into a partnership with a massive organization, massive corporate essentially, or a massive bank, will also drive the price of the cryptocurrency up. Now, what can also drive prices down essentially is FUD inside the market space, or it could be essentially Jerome Powell's speech on rate cuts. It could also be wars. If we do have any wars that happen around the world, they would have drastic implications on the market space. So any sort of news that correlates back to the market space, the crypto market space, or correlates back to the stock market, can also have effects on the crypto market, is pretty much affects the market space. It could be, if it's good news, then obviously the market will react in a good way. If it's bad news, the market will react in a bad way. But wars, manipulation, or a new platform that comes out like DeepSeek wipes out the market space a little bit and so on. So news is the biggest one that moves the market space. And there's also the other aspect where it's buy the rumor, sell the news. So if you're waiting for good news, it might not come. So you're better off buying the rumor beforehand and selling before the news comes out. But if you want to play the long-term role play, obviously that's not a recommended method. If you just want to play long-term and just keep on buying and not looking at it and just letting it grow, then that's a different method you want to play. But what drives the price of a cryptocurrency up or down is if it lands a new partnership, for example. If XRP lands a new contract, then the price of XRP will go up. If XRP gets a new license in a jurisdiction to be able to operate, XRP goes up. If XRP essentially does new developments with a new bank, XRP goes up. If XRP case gets dropped by the SEC, XRP goes up. If rules and regulations come out that have essentially effects on projects like XRP, because inside the financial sector, the price of XRP will go up. Now, if a war happens, on the other hand, then the price of XRP will go down a little bit. If essentially a manipulation matter happens on the stock market that could bleed out into the crypto market, then XRP price will go down. So in most cases, is news, contracts, and licensing that has the effect of prices going up or down, or adoption, which we're going to be having very soon due to the regulations. Now, your second part of your question was, and does the success of a project / purpose of a coin have any effect on the price? Yes. So if there's a crypto project essentially designed for no purpose whatsoever, like a meme coin has no purpose. It has one purpose: to shoot up and shoot right back down by the person that was created, essentially to drop on everybody else. So if there's a crypto project out there that has a purpose, then yes, it's definitely going to have an impact on its price later on. But that does depend on the amount of contracts they land for themselves, the amount of licensings they are able to get in different jurisdictions around the world. So it's not just about, just to point it out, it's not just about a crypto project coming out and saying, we're going to do tokenization and we're going to get involved, in the financial world. We're going to create games and AI. A lot of crypto projects can come out and say whatever they want. They can also, get news journalists to write positive articles about them. None of that matters. What matters is whatever they said, they achieve it, is all that matters. So if there's a crypto project out there that says, we're going to do tokenization, and they actually land themselves contracts and are able to do tokenization, then that purpose, is going to have an effect on their price on the long term, essentially going ahead. So on the question of, does this, does the success of a project / purpose of a coin have any effect on the price? Yes. Not overnight, but over time. When it comes to the purpose of a crypto project, in other words, its utility purposes, yes, it's going to have an effect on its price, but not overnight, but essentially over time, it's going to have an effect on its price, a positive effect. For example, XRP, over time, is going to have a very positive effect on its price due to it having so many licensings and having so many contracts in play. And the moment the case gets dropped, its utility starts kicking in under the new regulations and so on and so on. And then it's going to have a very positive effect on its price because due to its purpose, which is its utility. So yes, a crypto project with a purpose, which is a utility, is it going to affect its price? Yes, it is, but not overnight, over time. Hope that helps. John, now, John says, would you have, so these are questions that people really want to know answers to. If you do have a question that you're very confused about inside the crypto space, go for it right now inside the comment section. John says, would you have thought that the SEC would have dropped the case last week? Also, I'm reading comments on X that XRP won't move much when it is. What do you think? Okay, good question as well, John. Did I think XRP was going to be dropped? The case, Ripple's case, was going to be dropped last week? No, in any sort of a way. Because even though, Gary Gensler has left, there is still some, filing and paperwork that needs to be done for this case to be dismissed and essentially settled. It's not, in Hollywood, things move like the movies, people just assume on X, for example, not you, John, but people on X just assume just because Gary Gensler is out, the case gets dropped overnight with the XRP and SEC case. That's not how it works. In the real world, there are legal legal documentations that need to be filed out before that essentially stage of dismissal or settlements. Now, what we do know is a dismissal or settlement is 100% going to happen. There is no way that this new SEC is going to carry on these cases in any sort of a way with Ripple or Coinbase and so on. And on your second part of your question, which is, you said, I'm also reading comments on X, that's XRP won't move as much. What do you think? So when the case gets dropped, is XRP going to go through the roof? No, but XRP is going to do very well when the case gets dropped. It's going to have a very positive impact on the XRP price. But what's actually going to help XRP go through the roof on this price point is regulations. 3 green lights, I've always said since 2.5 years ago, I've always been saying, XRP needs 3 green lights. First green light is the case to be dismissed or settled. To go away, basically. The case needs to go away. This first green light that XRP needs. The second green light that XRP has always needed was regulations. Due to the client base, due to the essentially client base that Ripple has, which is all institutions, and they want to be involved only inside institutional space mostly, that's where XRP is going to thrive the most, inside the institutional space. One issue with that, institutions need regulations to be able to operate inside of a blockchain space, of a essentially crypto space. So regulations coming in that allows essentially institutions to be able to work with essentially blockchain firms and essentially be able to operate inside the corporate sector, inside the corporate crypto sector, is what XRP needs, because their entire client base is just institutions. So second green light that XRP has always needed is regulations, so the institutions can work with XRP. And third green light is pretty much the adoption, which is straight after the regulations. XRP has always needed 3 green lights. 1, case needs to go away. 2, regulations. 3, essentially adoption. So on your question of, essentially a lot of people say on X, they say that XRP won't, go as much when it is dropped. It's true, because we still need the regulation part. Yes, it's excellent news. Case gets dismissed or dropped. Excellent news. No doubt about it. There's nothing then holding XRP back. And the retail section and some institutions and so on can bring some positivity to XRP's price point. ETFs will start getting, ETFs will get approved as well, which will bring more positivity to the table, which will price up, shoot up XRP even more. But the biggest factor in play is going to be regulations that we've always wanted from the SEC and the CFTC to come up with regulations. That is what's going to help shoot up the price of XRP or XLM or XDC or H4 or any other crypto project out there that has ties with corporations, that has the licensing to be able to operate in these jurisdictions, because under regulations, those crypto projects will do extremely well. So it's the regulations we need. Obviously, the case gets dropped to dismissed. That's amazing. That's the first green light we always wanted. It's going to help the price. ETFs then getting approved, that's going to help the price even more. And then the essential regulations coming through, that's the bigger play right there. The regulations are the bigger play. The regulations can come before ETFs or after ETFs. Now, and the first regulation that came through and essentially was removing the SAB121, which was blocking essentially banks from working crypto companies. That's amazing. That's amazing, honestly. So once the case gets dropped, there's already one regulation in place, technically, one regulation removed, which is banks can work with XRP once the case is dropped and dismissed. Now, bull XRP. But all of that is going to be happening this year, pretty much. This year is the case getting dismissed or settled. This year is some regulations. This year is adoption year. This year is institutional year. This is where all the institutional money starts flowing inside the market space. This is the year for that. Today, a woman was warned when we delete apps still collecting data. So someone got warning from that. Interesting. From DeepSeek. That if they delete the app, they're still getting data from it. Could the US use stablecoins as, thank you for that, XRP. So John, I hope that helps as well. So Joe says, could the USA use stablecoins as a backdoor entry to CBDCs? Can the USA use stablecoins as a backdoor entrance to CBDCs? In a sense, maybe, if it's coded in that way, because it is just lines of code. When the rules and regulations come in, will it put a stop to the manipulation? When the rules and regulations come in, great question, Danny. Will it put a stop to manipulation inside the crypto space? No. It will stop a lot of manipulation. Rules and regulations will stop a lot of manipulation, no doubt about it. But, you know, manipulation is a very broad word to use because it could be applied to anything. It could be a war. A war is a manipulation scenario because wars don't randomly happen. Wars are, you know, planned to happen for certain reasons. So manipulation will still be there, but it will be a lot more less effective on the market space. It has to be a big manipulation play. Smaller ones won't affect the market space, neither will the mild ones. So it has to be the bigger manipulation that affects the market space. But it's something that's always going to be there, but a lot more less when it's a much more structured market space. Miles, in my question appear over there. Miles, is my question appear over here? No, Callie, your question hasn't appeared. This one has, but the actual question hasn't. Hi, Miles. What do you think of the Department of Government Efficiency coin, Doge? Kyle, how you doing? What do I think of the Department of Government Efficiency coin, Doge? So Doge is not the coin for the Department of Government Efficiency. The only reason Doge was even chosen as abbreviation is because Elon Musk loves the idea of Doge, in a sense. He loves the idea that's a retail member coin and it's only for the retail section, so on. So he loves that, and then, you know, he used the abbreviations of Doge to name that department. So Doge actually has no relations to the US government department in any sort of a way at all. It's just Elon Musk likes the idea of, you know, using the letters Doge to create the Department of Government Efficiency. So Dogecoin has no relations to that Department of Government. And what do I think about Dogecoin in a sense as well? It's a meme coin. It has technically no utility purposes whatsoever. It's a project that, if you want to go towards, at least have institutional projects in play, projects that have licensings and partnerships and so on. If you want to go on the sidelines for Doge, sure, why not? Not financial advice in any sort of a way. But Doge itself has no relation ties whatsoever to the Department of Government Efficiency at all. But good question, because some people might be confused on that. So I've just rectified it now. Now, my thoughts. Ray says, my thoughts exactly. Always heard that the buyback within the XRP community. One thing I gathered was to put the ledger in trust or essentially account your property, not the corporations. Facts. Camel says, I've never downloaded DeepSeek, and if I was going to use it, I would do that from my computer. No way I use my phone, but I know too many people does that. Yeah, that's true. I personally don't trust DeepSeek in any sort of way at all. Now, on the topic of DeepSeek, the new AI platform, DeepSeek has been banned in Italy, the first country to ban DeepSeek due to privacy issues. So the AI application, DeepSeek, has faced significant obstacles. The same platform that crashed the stock market and bleed into crypto markets has had significant obstacles as it was withdrawn from both the Apple App Store and Google's Play Store. In Italy, users are attempting to access the app were met with notifications indicating its vulnerability in their region, raising concerns about its compliance with local regulations. Italy's Data Protection Authority initiated a probe into DeepSeek's data handling practices. The agency essentially is demanding clarity on the types of data being collected, their sources, intended use, legal jurisdiction, essentially legal justifications, and storage methods, with a response expected from DeepSeek within 20 days. The Italian government, just to point it out of how much dodgy DeepSeek is. This is why I don't trust, these types of platforms coming out of China, because there's no trust whatsoever from a country that essentially blocks their own people from freedom of speech and human rights, where the Italian government has contacted DeepSeek on, clarifying where is all this data being used of the Italian population. And DeepSeek has sent them essentially a template message and saying, we'll reply back to you within 20 days. This is a government, not a regular person from the retail section asking random questions, or because they're stuck on some AI questions. This is a government of Italy contacting DeepSeek, and DeepSeek replying with a template email. We'll reply back to you in 20 days. When they ask them, what are you doing with the data collected from Italian citizens? This is why I don't trust Chinese platforms. So all those people out there who downloaded DeepSeek and helped DeepSeek get to #1 on the Google Play Store or the App Store, yeah, you've just basically sold all your firm's data to China, and you're not even fully aware of it. This is why I say going into a digital world, people need to be a bit more, people need to use a bit more brain cells going into a digital world, and just stop being so essentially, Originating in China, DeepSeek's quickly gained traction, even essentially outpacing ChatGPT in the App Store, in the Apple App Store. This Swift has triggered concerns among industry stakeholders and contributed to a downturn in technology stock values, as the app's essentially promises of affordable AI services has attracted a significant user base. Just so you know, there is nothing free in life when it comes from corporations. There's nothing free in life. Even though it does claim to be open source, and it is open source, but there's still nothing free in life. OpenAI has accused DeepSeek of borrowing technology and research from its own models to enhance its offerings. David Sachs from OpenAI remarked that there is considerable evidence supporting this claim, predicting that major AI companies will soon implement essentially measures to curb such practices. Reports from CNN revealed that the US officials are essentially evaluating the national security implications of DeepSeek's rapid growth. White House's press secretary Caroline confirmed that the National Security Council is scrutinizing the potential risk associated with the app. While the US Navy has already restricted personnel from using it due to essentially ethical concerns, DeepSeek essentially sheds light on the crucial issues surrounding data privacy and regulatory oversight in the burgeoning AI landscape, highlighting essentially the need for stringent measures. And key takeaways include the app's removal reflects Italy's data protection stance. The reason why Italy even banned essentially DeepSeek is because DeepSeek decided to send Italy's government a template response. We'll reply back to you in 20 days. So Italy said, oh, you're going to reply back to us in 20 days? No problem, you're banned in Italy. Governing concerns over data security could lead to more rigorous regulations worldwide. The case underscores the importance of transparency in AI data practices. Even though essentially it is open source, they still need to be open on the aware of where's everybody's data going to, which is what DeepSeek didn't want to answer to, and instead sent them a template reply of, we'll get back to you in 20 days. Remaining accessible in other EU nations and the UK, DeepSeek's ban in Italy emphasizes the urgent need for safeguarding data privacy with AI technologies. As global interest in AI surges, regulatory actions are becoming increasingly vital to ensure user security and ethical compliance. Yeah, you might want to stay essentially away from DeepSeek. If you are somebody out there that is using DeepSeek, you're basically giving away whatever data that's on your devices to China. And if you ask DeepSeek, where is my data going towards? They'll get back to you in 20 days. They're perfectly fine on taking your data, but if you want to ask where your data is going, they'll get back to you in 20 days. And it doesn't matter who you are, apparently. So yeah, think twice before using random platforms, just because they're free. Especially coming out of a country that's extremely strict on human rights and freedom of speech. Now, Crypto PAC is what we're going to talk about next. Crypto PAC supported candidates with essentially a win for Florida. 2 more Republicans have been chosen to take a seat, which is amazing, to be fairly honest. I mean, Republicans are just doing a massive clean sweep still till this day. And it's all thanks essentially to the crypto PACs that have been involved in this matter. And the crypto PACs being money that's coming from Ripple, Coinbase, Kraken, Crypto.com, and all sorts of these massive platforms that have helped essentially get all the Republicans to take the seats in the House. So here it is. 2 Republican candidates have won their respective congressional primaries for a special election after a cryptocurrency-backed political action committee, PAC, spent more than $700,000 to support their runs. In a special election for 2 seats representing Florida in the U.S. House of Representatives, Republicans Jimmy and Randy won their primaries for their state's 1st and 2nd congressional districts, respectively. The Defend American Jobs PAC, an affiliate of Fairshare, which spent more than essentially $131 million in the 2024 election, supported patrons and Finn's race through media buys ahead of the January 20th primaries. According to the filings with the Federal Election Commission, Defend American Jobs spent more than $500,000 on media by supporting fines of $200,000 and patrons. The Florida congressional districts have been represented entirely by Republicans through essentially roughly 30 years. The PAC tended to support essentially Republican candidates, while another Fairshare PAC affiliate, Protect Progress, spent millions of dollars to support Democratic candidates in 2024 elections, which that never really happened because they didn't win. But the expenditures essentially representing the first efforts by crypto industry-backed PACs to influence elections going to 2025 and beyond. Fairshare essentially supported primarily by contributions from Ripple Labs, and Coinbase reported raising $103 million to be used for candidates even in 2026. This is how much Ripple is playing into politics and Coinbase is playing into politics, and this is a positive. There are Bitcoin maxis out there that will tell you Ripple's going into politics, Ripple's lobbying politics, and this is bad. No, it isn't. Because of Ripple and Coinbase going into politics, we were able to do a clean sweep of Republicans who are all pro-crypto. Reasons why we have so many pro-crypto things going and essentially happening in America is because of Ripple and Coinbase. Unlike Bitcoin maxis who only see Bitcoin as everything, there is a much more bigger space out there that can do everything better than Bitcoin can ever dream of doing. And the reasons why we have such a pro-crypto United States right now, we've got to thank Ripple for that and Coinbase. And well, Bitcoin Max is going to struggle saying those words. And the words are, thank you, Ripple, for helping America become pro-crypto. But, that's never going to happen. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Bitcoin maxis will rather cry than do anything positive. Also, regarding the Crypto Fairshare PAC, we are proud to support both candidates with TV ad campaigns. The industry looks forward towards collaborating with them and the hundreds of members on both sides of the aisles committed to working essentially together to pass responsible regulations. So, 2 more candidates funded by crypto essentially Fairshare PACs and other Fairshare PACs just got 2 new seats. More positivity for the crypto space as a whole, not just Bitcoin. Now, moving on essentially from the Fairshare PAC news to Russia. Russia, specifically Digital Rube. Now, America has signed essentially an executive order to ban all CBDCs, but in that executive order, they did talk about private stablecoins of having a play. Now, is the United States going to be able to fully ban CBDCs and the United States will never have CBDCs in play? Not really, no. The United States will, just like any other jurisdiction, have some sort of CBDCs in play. And even if it doesn't have retail at the beginning, it will definitely have wholesale CBDCs in play. Because the rest of the world is in CBDCs, and the US isn't a country that wants to fall behind. The US never falls behind. It always wants to lead the world. So as 98% of centralized banks are in CBDCs, there's a high chance America wants to be number 1 in that category also, which makes sense because they're always rolling in number 1. So on that matter of CBDCs, Russian CBDCs that are coming out this year, the Digital Rube. You know what's interesting about the Digital Rube? That also applies to any other CBDC out there. That's every centralized bank working on CBDCs always says, we're not really sure if we're going to implement CBDCs, but we're still going to, spend millions of dollars or pounds or euros and figure out, if we're going to, use it, even though testings have been successful so far. And I always say they're lying, and they're only doing more testings is because they want to go towards CBDCs. And obviously, they're not telling you that because they don't want to create panic all of a sudden for people. And it was also something that was discussed in the Bank of International Settlements once with a former member who came out all of a sudden and said that if we do tell the whole world we're going to go towards CBDCs, then we have to freeze everybody's bank accounts because people will run towards the banks and try to take their cash out of the bank, which will cause essentially a bank run, which will essentially cause all the banks around the world to pretty much collapse. So they'll have to freeze everybody's bank accounts. So telling everybody, the government's coming out and going, oh, well, we're not going to really implement CBDCs. We're just spending millions of pounds, euros, and dollars just to do testings on something we're never going to use. If there's any sort of logic behind that. But Russia was one of those countries that said, we're just doing testings. It's optional. Even if it does come out, even if CBDCs do come out, it's optional. Don't worry about it. Well, it seems like optional went from force. Went towards force by the looks of it, because here it is. The Russian government is reportedly advancing closer to adopting its central bank digital currency CBDC, digital ruble. Under collaboration with public, essentially, institutions, the central bank tested its digital ruble framework for government financial operations. At the end of 2024, the trial began essentially as an essential event for Russia to implement digital CBDC payments within government budget, essentially, systems. The central bank shows no signs of backing down from its planned deployment date in 2025, this year, despite commercial banking sector's resistance to digital ruble. So Russia went from, oh, we're just testing on CBDCs. Don't worry about it. We're just testing. We don't even know if we want CBDCs, to CBDCs are optional. We're getting to a stage where it seems interesting now. But CBDCs, when they do come out, it's optional. Don't worry about it. Cash will work alongside CBDCs. To now getting to a stage where they're not backing down no matter what. Where even corporations or public or private banks in Russia are saying, are you sure you want to go towards CBDCs? We don't like the idea of CBDCs. And which the Central Bank of Russia replied with, essentially, we don't care about your opinion, we're going towards CBDCs. It went from, don't worry about it, we're just testing, to it's optional, don't worry about it, to it's forced now. That's also the step-by-step that's going to happen in every jurisdiction around the world, just a heads up. Since late 2024, a series of digital ruble testing operations and transactions has been conducted by Russia's central bank across a closed system with the Ministry of Finance and Treasury. The ongoing tests will help pave the way for the digital ruble to be deployed for government payment transactions. Russian daily publications essentially revealed trial success, yet Russian authorities did not disclose specific transaction date to the public. The reason why they're not telling the public when exactly the Russian CBDC is coming out this year is because they want to, not create that panic moment. A year before his announcements, Finance Minister Anton presented his intentions regarding the use of CBDCs in essentially transactions to achieve payment automations and enable precise financial aid essentially disbursements. And at present, the Ministry of essentially Aid, the Ministry of Finance maintains as it's not implementing digital ruble usage for welfare benefits or any citizen payments, but future expansions through successful pilots remain probable. So they're saying, oh, we're releasing CBDCs first for wholesale CBDCs only. So first will be the banks and institutions and CBDCs, and then we'll see, if we're going to do it for the retail section. Yeah, the reason why they're releasing it for the banks and institutions first when it comes to CBDCs, wholesale CBDCs, is because China made a mistake. So you see, China released CBDCs very different, and they made a mistake about it. China released CBDCs for the retail section first. And then they struggled because there was no corporations accepting wholesale CBDCs. There was no corporations accepting CBDCs. So they got some people in China to start using CBDCs, but the issue was where they're going to spend their CBDCs. So other countries took that as a lesson, and every country started then going towards wholesale CBDCs first to get the banks and institutions around you to start using CBDCs. So every shop around you starts using CBDCs. Every grocery store starts using CBDCs around you first. Every bar, every restaurant, every club, every gym starts using CBDCs around you first. And then they'll introduce the retail section, CBDC, so that you can spend your CBDCs. Unlike China, who did it the other way around. They released retail CBDC first, and then they struggled to get the partnerships. But obviously they, powered through. But the whole world took as a lesson that, okay, first we need to get everything around them into CBDCs, and then get them into CBDCs. Now, lawmaker essentially Anton leads the state Domas Financial Markets Committee and displayed his optimism regarding digital rupees' future. He said, "I'm confident that we will succeed, and the results essentially we have achieved will further extend to the entire country," he said, suggesting that the Republic could become essentially a key test state for expanding digital ruble use. By July 2025, Moscow expects to utilize digital rupees for official transactions. The central bank has announced they will begin digital ruble transactions with major banks before 2025, with further expansions planned for future years, and President Vladimir Putin has highlighted the digital rupe's necessities within Russia's federal budget operations as a means to survive economic, essentially, sanctions by 2025. Once it begins operations, the digital ruble will serve as an additional component to Russia's current cash value physical system, alongside both cash, rubles, and traditional non-cash fiat currencies. The central bank envisions using digital rubles as a cornerstone digital currency for international trade to decrease Russia's presence on financial essential dependency on the US dollars. And by establishing digital financial policies, Russia expands essentially its economic strategy to reduce Western dependencies, and while creating a closer essentially bond with countries from the BRICS coalition. And the Russian government shows support for digital ruble, yet many citizens remain unsure about its adoption, and statistically, polling indicates that a sizable portion of Russian people hesitate to embrace the implementation of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The public expresses uncertainty about digital ruble safety because it creates privacy complications and essentially raises fears of authorities that can manage account activity. And no matter what people think or what people say, it's still going to happen no matter what. And I'll be very honest, it's very easy to brainwash people, believe it or not. It's very easy to brainwash a mass crowd, as you might say. For example, Russia's going to be introduced their retail CBDCs by giving out discounts to people. Russia said, if we're going to release the public CBDC, we're going to do it in a way that if you use Russian CBDCs for public transport, you get a discount instead of using fiat, for example. If you use Russian CBDCs, at these types of places, you get a discount. You use public transport like train or the bus or the cab fares or whatever, and you use CBDCs, you get a discount. So which will make a lot more people go towards CBDCs due to the discounts. And then once you know it, you're trapped in CBDCs. End game. It starts with crumbs, It's like they're leaving crumbs behind, and the people are just, picking it up one by one, and then once you're trapped under the door. Now, it's like a mouse trap or a rat trap, basically. So Coinbase is what we talk about next. But there are positives for the CBDC world, which is the backbone of the CBDC world, and that essentially is XRP. XRP Ledger is the backbone of the CBDC world. People want to believe it, people don't want to believe it. It doesn't really care. It's a fact. XRP Ledger will play a role as essentially as the backing of the CBDC world. So, if you want to benefit in the CBDC world from other people being stuck on CBDCs, well, you know what to do. Now, Coinbase is what we talk about next. Coinbase has done a genius move, which is essentially hiring out people that helped Trump become president, which in my point of view is an extremely genius move to do. Now, here it is. Coinbase announced today that 4 new members are joining its advisory council, bringing expertise in finance and politics, including essentially the co-manager of President Trump's recent successful campaign. Coinbase revealed that William, essentially the former president of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and Chris, the co-manager of Trump's 2024 campaign, are joining its global advisory council. It also noted that essentially Kristen, the former Democratic senator from Arizona who proposed eliminating taxes on crypto transactions under $50, will also join the council. And with a strong ties to the Republican National Committee, criticized Biden's approach to crypto regulations and supported Trump's vision of making the U.S. a leader of digital assets. Coinbase has essentially created the advisory council back in May, essentially 2023, to navigate the growing, essentially complex of global market landscapes. And the council includes the former, essentially U.S. lawmakers, such as the former senator, essentially Pat, or with Trump's SEC becoming more crypto-friendly and aiming for clearer regulations. Coinbase is bringing influential figures to help push its goals further. This is what they said. I believe we've reached a pivotal moment in crypto's evolution, said William, the former New York Fed president. Coinbase can ensure it's safely integrated into our financial system for the benefit of the Americans. Coinbase's CEO Brian Armstrong met with Trump after the essential election to discuss personal appointments, and Coinbase also donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund and expressed support for the transition from Biden's administration. In 2020, Brian Armstrong essentially said that Coinbase wouldn't back specific political causes, but after facing legal challenges from the SEC in 2023, the company contributed $45 million to support pro-crypto candidates in 2024. With Trump's election, some in the crypto industry believe the SEC's enforcement actions may ease potentially benefiting Coinbase's ongoing legal battles. In January, a federal judge also paused Coinbase's case while the Second Circuit of Appeals decided whether to overturn a previous ruling that rejected Coinbase's request to dismiss the case. All these cases, essentially these legitimate cases, are definitely going to be discussed, definitely going to be dismissed or settled without a doubt. But Coinbase has done a genius move, which also goes back to what I said a while ago, that Coinbase is going to be having, Coinbase without a doubt is going to become the #1 crypto exchange in the world because it's American. That's just how things are. The #1 crypto exchange in the world will be Coinbase because it's American. And the #1 essentially crypto token, or the #1 crypto asset around the whole world, isn't going to be Bitcoin in the long run. It's going to be XRP because it's American. If you haven't figured that one out yet, you must be born yesterday, because everything that's American needs to be #1. You haven't essentially realized on that? All these Bitcoin maxis out there who don't know who created Satoshi, who don't know who created Bitcoin, but what we do know is it's not American. Unless the CIA wants to come out and say they created it, but it's not American. So in the long run, anything that's American will always be #1 when it comes to the market space, when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to technology or money or anything, if you really think about it. The #1 AI platform has to be American, and is going to be American. The #1 financial tool has to become American. The #1 exchange in the world has to be American. The #1 whatever in the world has to be American. If you haven't realized by now, you must have been born yesterday. So this is why I say, essentially, once we do have a level playing field, in Brad's words, XRP is definitely taking over Bitcoin. It's American. Bitcoin has no choice but to move over so XRP can climb the ladder. Now, SIBO restarts US Solana ETFs race with filings of 4 asset managers. Now, we did have quite a bit of XRP ETFs applying, essentially from mega corporations, and some of the ETFs from other institutions, but we also had Solana ETFs, and then all of a sudden they were withdrawn. The corporations that filed the Solana ETFs, they withdrew them quickly under the previous SEC, Gary Gensler. And well, they decided to refile them because there's no more Gary Gensler, America's pro-crypto, America becomes #1, and so on. So the Options and Derivatives Exchange, essentially SIBO, has filed applications seeking to launch of Solana's ETFs for 4 leading asset managers inside the United States. This development has once again retreated the race, essentially re-entered the race for the first SOL ETF to happen inside the country. According to details on the SIBO rule filing site, the exchange has filed a list and trade the VanEck Solana Trust, the Canary Solana Trust, the Bitwise Solana ETF, the 21 shares core Solana ETF. Asset managers in the US have not begun their Solana ETF applications journey today, and they tried several times last year but faced rejections from the SEC. And in July 2024, SIBO filed proposals to list Solana ETFs for VanEck and 21 shares, but by August of the same year, the filings had disappeared from the exchange's website, and these developments indicated that the SEC had likely essentially rejected the applications once again. And at the time, essentially, VanEck executives clarified that while the 19B essentially for filings have been removed from the SIBO website, the S1 essentially for the products was still active, signaling the company still intended to pursue the Solana ETF applications but not under the current administration. Obviously, Gary Gensler's gone now, and now we're very pro-crypto. So by mid-November, Cboe had submitted new applications for Van Eyck, Bitwise, Canary, and 21 shares still on ETFs. And however, they were rejected again in December. Cboe filings in terms of January 28 filings are the latest in the race, which is today, in other words. So if you're somebody that's holding Solana, you're back in the rankings because their ETF applications are refiled again because Gary Gensler kept on rejecting them back to back. But now that he's gone. Now, also, on the topic of Gary Gensler and the SEC, but not on the topic of Gary Gensler, more on the topic of the SEC, the new SEC. If you wanted to know, is the new SEC, working fast enough? Is the new SEC talking to crypto companies, having conversation with crypto companies, having, a back and forward, a positive back and forward, not a negative one like Gary Gensler? The answer to that question is yes, it is. Because we have some information. So the SEC is actually engaging more with crypto industry. This is according to Pantera's essentially CLO. Pantera's Capital Chief Legal Officer revealed that the crypto industry is getting more attention from the White House and regulators. In a recent interview on Bloomberg Crypto, she said, "We do see a lot of reach outs, particularly since January 20th. It's been essentially more than I can say prior to that." Straight away, Gary Gensler left January 20th is pretty much the exact same day the SEC opened its doors and started talking with crypto companies. They just waited for Gary Gensler to leave the building so they can start talking to crypto companies. She said that the regulators, including the US SEC and the White House, are strongly interested in understanding the industry. She added that they want to talk to us, they want to be educated, and they essentially that the interest in learning about the industry is so positive. She also believes that this engagement is a positive sign, suggesting that the administration's new crypto task force that was created overnight will work with industry leaders to develop clear essentially innovation and regulations. She expected the baptism efforts to create a legal framework that ensures safety while fostering growth in the sector. In the past, when Gary Gensler served as the chairman of the SEC, he gained attention for his tough stance on cryptocurrencies. Under his leadership, the SEC believed that crypto industries need stronger oversight, citing a lack of inadequate essential disclosures for everyday investors. After 4 years as the SEC chair, Gary Gensler departed in January, and now he is essentially a professor back at MIT. Believe it or not, Gary Gensler went back to his previous job, becoming a professor at MIT, teaching students about the only thing he was blocking from happening. The ironic part about that, Gary Gensler, chairman of the SEC, standing in front of the crypto space and saying no, is the exact same guy right now, gone back to MIT as a professor, teaching students about blockchain. President-elect Donald Trump's nominated Paul Atkins to replace Gary Gensler as the next SEC chairman. Atkins has shown a more favorable approach towards crypto and blockchain technology. There's also a legal battle between Ripple and the SEC that highlights the challenges. And essentially, crypto companies face under the there is also a legal battle between Ripple and the SEC and the highlights the challenges the crypto companies face under the SEC's past approach. And the SEC has also clashed with Coinbase, showing essentially the limited enthusiasms for crypto, and that the new approach of engagement marks a significant shift from the airy stance of the SEC, as there's been more resistance and less open to crypto industries in the past. And on the topic of the SEC, they're having another closed-door meeting today. Today, the SEC is going to be having another closed-door meeting discussing about the crypto space. And as you can see from the CLO of Pantera, that the SEC is actually communicating with blockchain companies in a positive manner. They want to engage inside the crypto space. They want to learn more about the industry. They want to help the crypto space and bring some innovation. And so here it is. Another SEC closed-door meeting on January 30th, which is today, sparks Ripple case settlement speculations. Obviously, the biggest case that the SEC has going on is Ripple versus SEC. It's the longest and oldest case in the blockchain space. So the cryptocurrency community is essentially abuzz with anticipation as the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, schedules a closed-door meeting today. This follows recent developments, including the essentially revocation of the staff accounting bulletin, 121, SAB, essentially SAB, which has significant implication for digital asset accumulating. Now, because they're suggesting the reason why, they might have discussions about Ripple, which in most cases they will do because it's the biggest case the SEC has going on, is because they just removed the SAB 121, which means banks are able to work with crypto firms. And that's what Ripple needs. So they're saying they remove that, and now they're going to dismiss the case, and Ripple can work with banks. So issued in March 2022, essentially SAB 121 provided guidance on accounting and treatments of digital assets held by entities such as crypto exchanges and custodians. The bulletin required these entities to recognize a liability and corresponding asset on their balance sheets for the obligation to safeguard crypto assets held for their clients. This approach was essentially criticized by industry stakeholders who argued that it could lead to misleading financial statements and increased regulatory burdens. In June 2024, Mark essentially publicly called for removing essentially SAB 121, expressing concerns over its issuance process and potentially overreach. He emphasized that the bulletin was released without adhering to standard rulemaking procedures outlined in the Administrative Procedure Acts, the APA, and which mandates public essentially commentary and ensures transparency. Now, Mark also stated the issuance of the SAB 121 through a regulatory decrease rather than a rulemaking under the Administration Procedure Act actually avoids judicial reviews, which weakens our checks and balances mechanisms to prevent excessive expansions of administrative states. In other words, Gary Gensler skipped so many steps to block banks from working with crypto companies. Now, the XRP community, on the other hand, in particular, has been optimistic about all of these developments, about these closed-door meetings, about the SAB 121 being removed so banks can work with crypto companies. And a lot of prominent community members highlighted the upcoming SEC meeting, noting that the removal of the SAB 121 during the last closed session, community members have expressed bullish sentiments. And some of these meetings are bullish after the SAB 121 and another member of essentially a lot of other members stating it seems that the day has come, let's stay calm and wait for the final bell, and that the speculation suggests a possible end to the Ripple case. Now, what I can say is that the Ripple case is definitely going to end this year. The new SEC administration is not going to be continuing this case on forward. It makes zero sense for them to do that. They're both pro-crypto, so Ripple case coming to an end this year, guaranteed 1 billion%, 1 trillion%. The SAB 121 essentially being removed, helping crypto to work with banks, as fast as it was removed, is interesting. Now, the second closed-door meeting that the SEC is having today, in hindsight, is extremely positive for the crypto space because it's more discussions they're having on what to do next inside the SEC to be more pro-crypto, because Mark and Hester Pierce are both pro-crypto. But are they going to be discussing Ripple matters? Yes. Is the case going to be dismissed today? No. Is the case going to be dismissed in general? I was about to say F, yes. But is the case for Ripple going to be dismissed this year? Guaranteed, yes. Hell yes. Very soon, in my opinion. Extremely soon. The case is going to be dismissed or settled. Extremely soon. So, on that note of another closed-door meeting that the SEC is having today, discussing more things about the market space. On that note, all good things must come to an end, which they have now. This is the endings of tonight's episode. This was episode 251 of the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is episode 251 of the CMF Live. The CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. I go by the persona of Crypto Mouse, and I'm the host of this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards. And I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations. We do Q&As, and essentially. And a disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. But this was episode 251 of the CMF Live. Incredible. And tune in for episode 252 tomorrow. Now, let's go to the comment section first, obviously, before we do go, because we do have some questions going on. Let's see where we're at. I never downloaded this yet. I read that one already. We were... Here, Miles, can you give my mom a shout out? She loves your show and is watching it with me. Her name is Zoom. Zoomir, thanks, brother. Yes, I can. FleXRP, how you doing? And FleXRP's mother, how you doing as well? Zoom, how you doing? Zoomir. I'm very happy that you're enjoying my shows, honestly. And I hope you tune into every show possibly that you can with essentially your son and FleXRP. Thank you so much for tuning in always into my shows, and thank you so much for showing so much interest towards my lives. And Hope to see you more often tuning into the live shows. So Zul, how you doing? Good to see you. Now, my question about Trump speech on World Economic Forum, he offered to foreign essential companies to come to work in the US, but how going to be for foreign companies when the US company is made in US? The question is, if foreign companies come to the US, foreign companies essentially coming to the US to benefit from those methods, but that's what they want. So you're talking about essentially are the other already American companies going to be suffocating because a lot of new companies are becoming? No, there's enough money and enough essentially adoption to be going around. That all depends on the amount of regulations in place, to be fairly honest. Thompson, good to see you. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Good night, SCC. JP. See you tomorrow about the same time as usual. Thanks, Legend. Thanks, Legend. Night and day to all our CMF family. Shelly, let's go. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Good night, everyone. Bull XRP. See you tomorrow same time as usual as well. XRP is the financial bridge, and XLM is the world currency of the world. Let's go, Thompson. Thomas. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Take care and see you tomorrow. Mike, see you tomorrow about the same time as usual as well. Thanks, essentially. Thanks and good live. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow. Orphan, see you tomorrow same time as usual as well. Thanks so much, Miles. No problem, Sue. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Thanks again for another brilliant live stream, and much appreciate, Thompson. Let's go. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Great job as always. Like, share, and leave a comment. Take care all. Let's go, Ray. Good night, Miles, and see you tomorrow. Flea XRP. See you tomorrow same time as usual. And Zul. See you tomorrow, hopefully, as well. And thanks so much for always tuning into my lives. Thanks, Miles. See you tomorrow. Stormy, see you tomorrow, sometimes as usual as well. Good night, Miles and family. Thanks for another great live. Thanks for another great show. Comatose, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Good night, Miles, for another excellent live. Thank you so much for all your great information. Adi, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual as well. Miles, I appreciate all that you do for our family. Scott, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. H1ACH, still good, Miles? Yep, they're still good. Thanks for an amazing live, brother. Let's go, Camel. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual as well. I will be seeing everybody. Could you give me a quick call? I have a question. Sure, no problem. I'll give you a quick call after the live. Great job, Miles. Great job, Miles, aka Goat. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow, sometimes as usual. Won't take long. No problem, Camel. I will be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, for episode 252 of the CMF Live. If you haven't already, comment, share, retweet, like. If you haven't already, follow and subscribe. I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow for episode 252 of the CMF Live at 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. CMF, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good evening, Miles. I'm late. We'll review it. Thanks. Let's go, Mav. No problem. You seem to be doing much better, Miles. I'm glad for you. Let's go, Scott. Share the live, and please do not forget to comment. Yes, facts. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, 11:25 p.m. UK time for episode 252. CMF, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are.